Very good morning to you. Welcome to The Big Issue on 97.3 Cedi FM, on ChannelOne television, and on our socials. My name is Selom Adunu. This is your platform for incisive analysis and riveting conversation. We come your way every Saturday morning, and it's a place where we discuss the topical matters in the week which made news with our guests who are very insightful and have views on the matters that will leave you very insightful in the end. A number of things have happened this week, but one thing that has dominated this week and some part of the month really is the surge of the Cedi. The Ghana Cedi has become one of the most powerful currencies across the world. Indeed, it is one of the fastest performing or best performing currencies in Africa and largely in the world. A lot has been attributed to this surge. Others attribute this to global happenings, and others also say that there are domestic matters that have largely contributed to this week. So we'll look at a review of the Cedi's performance for the past week and the past couple of weeks as well, and try to understand why the Cedi is behaving the way it is behaving. It's behaving quite well, and see whether there is anything we can do to sustain this. What does this mean for our traders? What does this mean for our pockets? Traders have been called upon to reduce the prices of their wares. They say that they need some time because they have old stock they bought at high prices because the dollar at the time was higher. And so the stock they have now, or the goods they have in store now, were not affected by the performance of the Cedi, how the Cedi is appreciating against the dollar. And so we should give them some time. When they run out of, or they go, when they run out of this consignment, they go take new ones. Those new ones will reflect the happenings on the exchange market front. Do you agree with them? What do you think? We want to hear from you. Also, the energy sector struggles continue. The energy sector is one of those sectors that has been said by many as the most worrying part of the economy. Energy Minister says that the debt in the sector is in excess of 80 billion Ghana cedis. And indeed, this week, he said that if we do not get 1 billion cedis to purchase fuel, we'll be in trouble. At the time, he said there were some 2.5 or 2.6 days of fuel left. And if we do not find a way around that, we'll be in deep, deep trouble. However, he said the finance minister has made some funds available to assist. What is really happening to the energy sector? How can we deal with this? It's a discussion we've had many times, but is there something we can do quickly to ensure that the sector does not lead to the collapse of the economy? If there is time, we'll look at Sami Gyamfi's matter as well, which has been widely discussed in the week and on various platforms. But the main matters gauging our attention this morning: the surge of the Cedi, the energy sector struggles, and of course, the president's caution to Sami Gyamfi. The show is live and interactive. You can join the conversation via our WhatsApp line 020-444-7033. And those of you watching on television, that number has been displayed on your screen. Otherwise, you can use 0549-986-996. 0549-986-996. And we'll be happy to share your views with the rest of the world. What do you make of the current position of the Cedi, one of the best performing currencies in the world? I mean, a couple of years ago, it was the worst performing currency. What do you attribute this to? Others have said that it is the happenings on the global stage, US trade wars, etc., and that is making the dollar unattractive. Others are attributing this to domestic fiscal and monetary policy tightening. What do you say? We want to hear from you. I'll take a short break. I'll return, provide you some updates, and introduce my guest, and we'll get discussion underway. This is The Big Issue. You are welcome. You're welcome back. This is The Big Issue on 97.3 Cedi FM. We're also live on ChannelOne television. We're also live on our socials. We're happy to hear from you on 020-444-7033. The main issues for today: the Cedi surge, a review of the Cedi's performance for the past week. The Ghana Cedi appears or has been doing very well, and people think that it's a fluke, quote unquote, but there are others who think that no, there's something really good happening in the management of the economy on the monetary policy front and the fiscal policy front as well. There are good things happening. Yesterday, the average interbank rates used by commercial banks for transactions at the close of business stood in terms of the dollar at 12.39 for buying and selling 12.40 cedis to the dollar. And a couple of months ago, it hovered around 15, 16 cedis. Many analysts have said that this sharp decline appears that the cedi has rallied too far and that this will stabilize end of year to about 14 cedis to the dollar. But for now, it's around 12.4. And so the question is, how do we sustain this? What are the factors contributing to this performance? Is it solely global factors, or there is something really good happening within our economy? What dramatically, or is there anything that has happened dramatically that is leading to this? Is it just a goodwill? Is it attitudinal change? What is it? We have been told many times that our economy, the problems with our economy are structural. And until the structural matters are resolved, we will continue to see the cedi performing poorly against the major trading currencies of the world. Have those structural issues been resolved 4 months into the administration of a new regime? What are the factors? We want to understand this, and are they sustainable? How do we cash in to ensure that we have something good happening? Is it a gold board? But a gold board, I mean, what really has a gold board done to share in this in this glory? We want to understand all of that with our guests this morning. Of course, the energy sector struggles. One of the things you're looking at, the Energy Ministry seeks on 1 billion Ghana cedis to purchase fuel with a few days left. They say they have 2.6 days left to run out of fuel. Thankfully, Finance Ministry has made some money available. We'll see about that and ask, how do we clean up the sector? How do we ensure that the sector works well? Privatization of the ECG, is that the solution? Efficiency, how do we inject efficiency into the system? We'll look at all of that. And we'll spend some time on Sami Gyamfi as well. But let me provide you with some updates. The government and key trade associations have reached a consensus to implement price adjustments over the next 60 days, provided the cedi maintains its recent momentum against the US dollar and other major foreign currencies. In recent weeks, the cedi has shown marked resilience, reversing months of depreciation, a development that has reignited public expectations for downward price adjustment. There's more in the following reports filed by Emmanuel Opon.
This decision followed a high-level meeting on Wednesday between the Minister for Trade, Agribusiness and Industry, Elizabeth Ofosu-Adjare, and the leadership of the Ghana Union of Traders Association, GUTA, the Association of Ghana Industries, AGI, and the Food and Beverage Association of Ghana, FABAG. The minister in her remarks noted that through dialogue, some importers have already initiated price reductions.
I'm happy to inform you that the direct importers have agreed to reduce their prices, and some have already started that already.
The trade associations also committed to follow suit to restore consumer confidence.
By 2 months' time, everybody in the country will witness the fact that the business community also think about the consuming public.
We are committed to the cause of reflecting these gains in our pricing and our various business activities. As stated by my colleague, it's as a result of the forces of demand and supply that determines price on the market. We believe sincerely that within the period of 60 days from now, this impact will be translated onto the final price of our products that we wholesale and retail.
All right, so that was a report from that's a report from my colleague Emmanuel Opon on the cedi and how the trading unions or the trading associations and the Ministry of Trade and Industry and Agribusiness have been interacting to see how we can have some price or downward price adjustments in respect of the happenings on the Cedi. My guest this morning, the Honorable Inusa Fuseni, former Member of Parliament, former Minister of Many Portfolios, the Honorable Tia Abdul Kabiru Mahama, Member of Parliament for the Wale Wale constituency. And I must say that my two guests today are both alumni of the Narelugu Senior High School. The school should be proud of you this morning, both of you. And also we have Professor Patrick Esumi, who's an economist with the University of Ghana. He joins us on Zoom. Gentlemen, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Great. Let me start off with you, Kabiru. The Cedi has been performing well in the last couple of weeks, and many have attributed this to many things. Given where you sit, I mean, an economist sat on the technical advisor to the former vice president and all of that. What will you attribute the current performance of the Cedi to?
All right, thank you very much, and once again, good morning to you and to my senior brother, lawyer Inusa Fuseni, and good morning to the people of Wale Wale for the opportunity to always serve them. Salom, the issue of the dollar depreciating or losing value against the Cedi is a factor of both domestic and external factors. And when you analyze the dollar situation, you cannot just pinpoint one single reason why the Cedi is appreciating against the dollar. There is what I term the confluence of factors that will have occasioned this, just like any other economic factor. And that modelers or people who run this particular analysis, they throw in some of the factors and try to determine which of these factors has significant correlation with the movement of the Cedi. So it will not be right that any analyst will sit down and say, look, this is the reason why the dollar is appreciating. We may decide to measure each and every one and see which of them is contributing.
Sorry to break it. Just hold your horse. Understand your microphone is so they'll work on that really quick for you, so that you can continue from there. So whilst they do that, let me bring in the Honorable Inusa Fuseni. Many have been praising your government for stabilizing the Cedi. What have you been doing differently? Can we say that what is happening now is due to prudent economic management, or there are other factors that are contributing to this, for which reason we can say that the performance of the Cedi, as we see now, may not be sustainable?
Senator Salom. Indeed, I first of all will say good morning to your good self. The last time we met was about 3 or 4 weeks ago here. And to my brother, friend, alumni, Dr. Kabiru, I'm very proud of him. When we attended the Narelugu Secondary School, we used to read with lanterns. There was no light, but we are going far. So I'm really proud of him. Now, and to our viewers, I say good morning. I had thought that we will give Kabiru an opportunity, Dr. Kabiru, an opportunity to expatiate on the reasons why the Cedi is performing. And then I can come, because I trust that he will do justice.
Great. So the thing is, microphone matter has been resolved, actually. So let's do that. Yeah, so I'll deal with him. I'll go to Prof, then I'll come to you.
Very right. So that, like I said, it will not be fair. It will not be, if you like, academically sound and professionally apt if you try to say that this single factor is the reason for the appreciation of the Cedi. One, let's look at the external factors first. We do know, and rightly so, that perception, uncertainty in the global market play a very important role in the movement of the currency. The currency debacle is sometimes more or less like perception issue than the real shortages or demand and supply issue. So when we have the United States economy suffering from this tariff war and the global uncertainty, definitely you will expect people to lose confidence in the dollar. And this is accentuated by the fact that whenever there is lack of confidence in the dollar, they move towards the yellow metal, that is gold. And you also see that within this period, the price of gold has gone off the roof, going as much as 3,400 per ounce. That also, people then also tend to patronize other commodity where they can have store of value, cocoa. So definitely the external factors have contributed to the woes of the dollar, and by that, it is contributing to the stability, if you like, the appreciation of the Ghanaian cedi. Aside this particular trade war, we also do know that whenever prices of your major exports is going up, you are expected to cash in on that particular rainfall or windfall. And the dollar, the gold and the cocoa has given us quite significant foreign exchange earnings within this particular period. And once we have that, it builds into the perception, it builds into the sensitivity of investors that look, within the shorter possible time or for this particular period, our currency, the local the Ghanaian cedi, would not face any sharp decline. So it brings sensitivity to the market. Now, aside the external factors, we have internal factors that have occasioned this particular appreciation. The internal factors includes the reserve position. And you know, the reserve position is not independent of itself. It's a factor of also external factor, which I've explained. For instance, when you are getting more from gold, gold prices are not determined domestically. Gold prices are purely exogenous. In other words, the factors that goes into whether or not our gold per ounce is sold at $3,400 per ounce is determined by the market outside of Ghana. So reserve is one contributing factor. Again, we have the reserve coming on the back of the gold purchase program. Since independence, before the MPP government started buying gold as a store of wealth or as to build up the reserves of the central government, we had about only 8 tons of gold. But within the period, sometime 2021, 2023, up to the time the MPP were exiting power, we had over 30 tons of gold at the reserve. The NDC government, within the past 4 or 5 months, has added some 0.8 tons, just short of 1 ton. Yeah. Oh yeah, just short of 1 ton to the gold reserve. So that builds into the organic. If you like, the organic gold reserve, foreign reserve of the Bank of Ghana. And it translates to more than 3 months of import cover. So that is also another factor. That is the reserve. The reserve brings certainty that people could be assured that when you need dollar, you will get it. Another reason is that the Bank of Ghana in April injected almost about $500 million by way of auction. So basically, it is a central bank using the reserves or using the hard currency they have to support the local currency. So when you have the availability of the currency within the system, people can then decide, look, there is no point trying to hoard dollars. There is no point trying to scramble for the dollar. It is there whenever we need. So it brings calm into the market. And once supply of dollar far outweighs, or if like, even if it's perceived that it far outweighs the demand, definitely the price of the local currency is going to go up. Another reason that we discuss, usually there is this policy disconnect, and also it has its downside, the monetary policy and the fiscal policy. The monetary policy, as it were, they don't target exchange rate. They target, if you like, inflation anchoring. They are interested in bringing down the heat, how fast prices of goods and services are increasing on the average. That is the policy of the Bank of Ghana. So they do that by their policy rate. You see the last monetary policy committee meeting of the Bank of Ghana, they decided to increase the policy rate. In other words, the essence of that particular decision was to mop up, they call it liquidity sterilization, to mop up any excess liquidity so perceived that is causing the rise in the general price of goods and services, i.e. inflation. Now, if the central bank does that, and on the fiscal side, government is spending, then the monetary policy will not perform its expected role. Now, so the hegemony in policy domestical is that whereas the central bank is mopping up excess liquidity, the exchequer is holding the purse tight. This is why you see that there's hegemony, and then fiscal is complementing the monetary to result in what we call, in the appreciation of the Ghanaian cedi. The downside of that is the fact that
so that's a good thing to do.
That's a good thing, but it also had its negative. It's called, there's something to give always in when you are doing in this economic decision you are taking. There's something to, for instance, life has become a bit unbearable for the ordinary citizen. Not because government deliberate policy, but because government is not spending. Right? So that is the downside. Because if there's no money in circulation, if people cannot, contractors are not being paid, if energy, IPP, just like one of the reasons why we are having power crisis we will discuss is because of this decision. Because if government had decided to pay IPPs, it will translate into the pressure on the dollar. So it is a good thing, but there's also the downside of it. And the downside of it is that it makes people within the heat within the economy is going to be so much that if at a point they don't loosen this particular policy, people will definitely go on the street. It is going to cause dissatisfaction for the government as well if they don't do something. So there's that balance now. And I understand that 3 months in office, the government decision not to spend, for me, from a professional point of view, is a good point. That they are limiting the rate at which government spends. Fiscal consolidation is one of the things that we've been wanting as economists and as professionals to do. But there must be a point that you have to hold the brake. At what point? If that point comes, and then the pressure begins to now mount on the Ghanaian cedi, what would happen? So currently, that is the fiscal part that is helping. If Mr. Atuforsen decides to say that I'm now going to pay contractors, because since they came to office, not even one single contractor has been paid. If they decide to say that I'm going to pay loans, because there's moratorium on the payment of loans, definitely there's going to be pressure on the Ghanaian cedi because they will now be demanding dollar than the cedi. If Mr. Atuforsen decides to say that, well, we are also now opening up to do more projects, i.e. engage more contractors and giving them mobilization to go to site, there's going to be pressure on the Ghanaian cedi. So, for me, domestic policies are contributing. And domestic policies are contributing much so, especially so the rate at which the cedi is appreciating. If left to the external factors, we will have some stability, but we will not have experienced this sharp decline
in the dollar.
Yeah. But there's also one thing that we must also admit. Despite the official rates, they seem not to be dollars with the bank. If you go to the bank, if anyone can do a test, go to his bank with 10,000 Ghana cedi, say you want to buy an equivalent of $10,000, you are likely to be told that they don't have. I don't know whether it's a collusion between the banks and then the black market. It is not something I can forthright say. But you are likely to get the dollar in the black market rate. And the rate that is quoted there is 14, it's not tough. It's not even 13. Right? So that disconnect, that policy disconnect, is not even peculiar to this government. And I must admit, it's not peculiar to this government. Whenever we are having some gains in the currency, the black market does not respond. And that is where the dollar is. Like my friend Adongo said, Bank of Ghana is holding the rate, whilst Abuja is holding the dollar. So where the dollar is, that mechanism, and I made a comment 2 days or 3 ago alluding to the fact that I bought something online, okay, using my bank, commercial bank. At the time, Bank of Ghana was quoting maybe 13. They charged me 14.1 to the dollar to the cedi to the dollar.
Using the interbank rate?
So the interbank rate, I have also decided, I've asked my research assistant to give me averages of the banks. For the past 3 days, I've been doing it. I took about 21 commercial banks in the country. They are selling and they are buying of the dollar. I try to do the weight of this particular difference. Truly, the difference between the figures I get from that of the Bank of Ghana is around maybe 0.5 cedi difference, which definitely, is understandable, where if I have a rate difference from the Bank of Ghana rate of around 50 pesos, I will understand where the difference, because sometimes they use weighted average. So I will not have so much issue with that because it's within the range. But when I compare their rate to the black market rate, where the dollar is, there's a sharp and vast difference. And that is where probably sometimes the policy and the gains do not necessarily translate into prices of goods, or do not necessarily translate into the living standards of the people, or into the cost of living of people, or the cost of doing businesses. And that is the point I think that the government would have to look at in this whole issue. So basically, domestic factors are contributing. There are also the external factors. Now we have the United States now having trade agreement with China and with several other countries. Would that play into the dollar Cedi war domestically? Definitely that would. To what extent would that affect our Ghanaian cedi? Depends on the level of reserves we have, right? Those are the questions. Now, if we have reserves, energy payments alone is close to 2 billion, right? And over the past 3-4 months, the government has only added about $500 million to the reserve. So it means that even if we are going to pay our debt, then we are going to eat into our reserves, and perception of the dollar Cedi war would then also kick in. So definitely, we are not doing anything. And for me, with the greatest respect, any finance minister can do what Mr. Atufosun has decided not to spend. Okay, that is it will come at a political cost, which goes into the commitment of government. I mean, admittedly, it will go into the commitment of government, but it is not any magic wand. And if you remember, just 3 months ago, we discussed on this platform and other platform, when this economy was discussed as criminally mismanaged, right? So one would have expected that some cogent policy decisions would have been measured. And if you look at the Bank of Ghana too, Bank of Ghana has not done anything significant apart from raising the monetary policy. Aside that, they've not done anything. Okay, one may say that, okay, once I raise it and it coincides with the policy directive and it's making my my exchange rate appreciate, it's a good thing. You must commend me, because other people have done it and it hasn't resulted in the gains. The Bank of Ghana may want to argue that. But I say that over the past, former governors have done the same thing, but it has not resulted. And the catch here is that the fiscal policy is acting the same manner as the monetary policy is acting, and that policy convergence. That policy convergence is what is resulting to these particular gains we are having.
Great, Prof. Welcome once again to the program. Good to have you as always. I'm just looking at an ABSA Ghana market insight, and they say they believe that the cedi has rallied too far. They generally expect that the cedi will close the 0.16 to the dollar. When they did this study, the rate was 13 cedis, 13.05 to the dollar. Now it's gone down further to 12.4 to the dollar. The question to you is, do you share the view that the cedi has rallied too far?
Good morning, and good morning to my colleagues and friends in the studio. Yeah, so I think to start off, to answer the question directly, I don't think that you end the year with the cedi trading what is currently trading against the US dollar. I don't expect for a minute that that's where we are going to be. Now, I think I generally agree with the point that Dr. Tia Kabiru mentioned about why the cedi has appreciated. The only thing I'll add is that I think it's also obvious that since the last election, confidence within the Ghanaian economy has really strengthened. And it strengthened even further when the budget was read and when the IMF came to the staff level agreement with the government of Ghana. There had been some worries that because of the challenges towards the end of the year, perhaps it might take longer to get the SLA done. If you look at the Bank of Ghana's summary of economic and financial data, you see between the end of last year and February alone, consumer confidence index has jumped about 10% up, and the business confidence survey has also jumped up. So in addition to all the factors that you mentioned, there's also been some confidence in the economy that has somehow contributed to the cedi. But like he said, it's very difficult
But
to.
what will you attribute this confidence to? Is it just by virtue of a change of government and the positive, perhaps, signals the government is sending or the promises it made that perhaps it appears to be fulfilling? I don't know. What will you attribute the confidence to?
So I think the data that I'm referring to was for February. Notice that as of February, the government had not really announced any policy. So I would largely attribute that to, just the change, the change that happened at the polls brought some change in mood. And I think there's some positivity that comes with having a new government. But I think when the at the MPC meeting this month, when they release the updated data, we'll see whether there's been further bounce from the policies that have been announced. You expect that once the budget was announced and in the main Ghanaians' expectations, especially in regards to taxes, were met, perhaps you might see some additional bounce coming from that angle.
I see. But yes, go ahead.
So, but I think coming to the broader point about how quickly the cedi has appreciated, I think I will largely agree that the appreciation perhaps has gone a little too far. But even more importantly, I think that making the currency appreciate so quickly or so sharply over a short period, I'm not sure it's such a clever thing to do, because it is as much volatility to see the currency appreciate so quickly, so sharply in a short period, as it is when it goes the other way. When the currency depreciates so quickly and so sharply in a short period, you see the concerns that comes with uncertainty. In some sense, it's the same thing that is happening. I think even if you wanted the cedi to appreciate, I would have preferred that it was more slow and steady than to let it jump very quickly. Then the broader question is, do we really want the cedi to appreciate to the level that it is? I think that in the main, what markets want is stability. So, and you notice that over the last 6 to 9 months or so, it's been kind of stable around the 15 to 16 range. And I'm sure many businesses would have planned their year expecting that that's where the currency is going to be. So to see this sharp appreciation in that short period, for me, I'm not sure that is the best use of our reserves. I would have preferred that, yes, some external factors are helping stabilize the cedi. And then, of course, the policy change with regards to, the decision to accumulate more dollar reserves, more gold reserves have helped. But I wouldn't have expected that now would be the time to kind of liquidate some of that position to support the cedi or pump the amount of dollars that the BOG has done in the last month. So it's not like we're in a period where the cedi was under pressure for which you needed to pump dollars to support it. So I would have preferred that even if you wanted the cedi to appreciate, it would have been slow and a little steady, and definitely not to this extent, so that we could hold of more reserves. Because, when things turn around for the advanced countries' economies, some level of pressure will come on the cedi, for sure. And, starting from next year, when our external debt service payment ramps up, you should also expect that some additional pressure will come. So I would have preferred that perhaps we held more of our reserves and held the position so that it will allow us to keep the cedi more stable around the 15 range for much, much longer. And I think that will still have brought the flexibility that, the predictability that businesses would expect.
I see. Great. The rate, as I alluded to earlier, it's on your screen now. The Bank of Ghana daily exchange rate, Friday, 16 May 2025. We see the USD buying for 12.39, selling for 12.41 or 4062. Pounds and other currencies also taking a cue from what the Cedi is doing to the dollar. So that's where we are now. And Prof is saying that he doesn't think it's so much of it's not very smart to let it appreciate this quickly. He would have preferred a slower appreciation so that there's some stability in this. Let me come to the Honorable Yunusaf Hussaini. Interesting things that Professor and Doctor have said. What is the thinking? I mean, you think it's a smart thing to make it appreciate this much? I mean, shoring up, I mean, the Forex auctions, etc., putting in more dollars in the system, amongst other things. Of course, he also made a point that the government is not spending, and that's also part of the reason why the Cedi appears to be appreciating. Putting all of this together, monetary policy, fiscal policy, you think it's a wise thing to get it to appreciate this much?
But first of all, I think that I need to comment Dr. Kabiru and Prof for the thoroughly professional manner in which they dealt with this matter, especially Dr. Kabiru.
Because he was a political.
I was very keen on spotting political jabs, but I see that initially when I came here, I said, and I saw him, I said, but why do you bring me to because, but I think that my presence is good because he's been very, very, very professional, and I largely agree with him and Professor on the combination of factors that have brought about this change in the value of the Cedi in this country in this short period of time. But I think that it's the congruence of the monetary and fiscal policy of government that is driving the change in value of the Cedi, the strengthening of the Cedi. I do that because I think that when you look at the West African sub-region, the exogenous factors affect all the West African sub-region. But the CFA is not performing that well. Neither is the Nigerian Naira performing that well. So
even on the African continent itself, the Kenyan shilling, the Ugandan shilling, the Tanzanian shilling, even the Egyptian pound are not doing so well. The South African rand is doing well, but not as well as the
Cedi. And so you can see that in these exogenous factors, the tariffs war or trade war that has been launched by Donald Trump against almost all countries is affecting all countries equally, but their currency is not performing now. So largely, I try to discount what the exogenous factors or external factors are, even though they have an impact. I mean, people, when the Cedi with dollar is under strain, when people lose confidence in the dollar, the immediate recourse to a store of wealth is the gold. And so that's why you see that increase in the value of the gold. And people then tend to store their wealth in gold. Now, yes, so a combination of the fiscal policies and the monetary policies is working to drive this change. And I think that it should continue that way. Your government is not spending that much now. And government will not spend that much in areas that are not productive. Because the greatest threat to the stability of the Cedi is the excess liquidity in the system. So government's focus is to mop up, and I agree that that is what the Bank of Ghana is trying to do, to mop up the excess liquidity in the system. That is why you saw during the time of the MPP that most of the policies that are being implemented now by the Central Bank of Ghana were implemented by the MPP administration, but did not result in the decline in the appreciation in the value of the Cedi, because there was no, like if you want, that congruence of the policy. Whereas Bank of Ghana was trying to mop up, the Ministry of Finance and all the spending agencies were pumping a lot of, including, I mean, even Bank of Ghana at a point was acting very inconsistent. Whereas it was trying to mop up, it printed a lot of money into the system. That made our Cedi devalue, devalue to the extent that we came down up to 17 or so cedis to the dollar. And so, yes, Government will spend. Kabiru, government will spend. The government is going to spend in productive areas. And you can see the indication. Yesterday, or the day before yesterday, they swore in the governing board of the Cocoa Board. And you heard what the minister said. We are going to acquire 200,000 hectares of land for the purposes of cocoa. Well, that should give an indication of how government is thinking. We're going to spend. Acquiring that land is expenditure. The seedling and everything is expenditure. But it's going to be productive. We are able to restore the cocoa industry to the position in which it was, even if for a period of time. That will guarantee us, a return that will show up the value of the city, productive area. We're going to, the big push, we're going to spend, and we're going to spend in areas that will lead to growth poles. So, for instance, your area, the Northeast area, and particularly the Yakba area, has the potential of providing about a third, or if you want, a half of the rice needs of this country. So, but what do we see? The roads are not good. And so when the rice is in session, the rice is harvested, it stays there. 4 years ago, under Afriye, Fumbisi Valley, the rice was harvested and locked up there, got rotten. That's a productive area. So if we spend money in doing the roads and ensuring that the rice that is produced in that area can move to the mills, the rice mills, and subsequently to the markets, it will reduce the amount of rice that we import into this country. So the government is going to spend. But government is going to spend only on productive areas. But the guess is right, it's true. Right now we are doing inflation targeting, anchoring. We want to reduce the level of inflation because we know that inflation eats into the pockets of the people. It reduces the purchase price parity. And so, yes, if you are a salaried worker like the Honorable MP, and inflation is rising, your real income diminishes. So if we're able to target inflation in such a way that we bring it under control, your disposable income improves. And so, yes, and that is a deliberate policy. It's not by accident. And that is anchored in the statement that Dr. Atuforsen delivered in Parliament, the budget statement. He said, the state of our economy is troubling. It will require some sacrifices, truthfulness, transparency, and discipline to fix it. So what is happening is not by accident. Now, we are told that the gold for oil thing was an initiative of Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. Granted. But that is being done differently now.
How differently?
Why? That was a policy. What was the policy blueprint? How much money was used to buy the gold? Who were responsible for buying the gold? Opacity. What was the legal regime that underpinned the whole policy? Nothing. We just got up one day and we heard the government was pursuing a policy of gold for oil. Government was buying gold. How much money did the government of Ghana use to buy the 30 tons of gold? How much? Where did the money come from? Did we get value for money? Now, what is happening under the NDC government is totally different. It opens up. So today in Parliament, Kabiru can file a question. I said, look, you say you bought 0.8 tons of gold. How much did you buy? How much money did you use to buy that gold? Where did the gold come from? You can track, you can trace, you can hold the government accountable because there's now a legal regime. The amount of money that is to be used to purchase the gold has been budgeted. It's found in the budget. And that budget was approved by Parliament. So if somebody spends in excess of the budget, he will be held accountable. If you spend the money and we don't get the required amount of gold that budget is supposed to buy, you will be held accountable. So you see, it's the transparency. the discipline of ensuring that all the payments, all the contracts, those with commencement and non-commencement certificates ought to be resolved so that we know the real state of the debt situation of this country before payment can be done. It's also part of it. If not, we would have simply, as a government, we would have simply...
How about the counter-argument that not paying them, brings hardship? Because it doesn't appear like there's enough money circulating in the system because the government is holding on to it with the excuse that they are auditing road contracts, etc., to be sure how much we owe before. It's a good thing. But doing it within an extended period of time also has consequences. That is, the cost of living or the hardship in the country will be quite unbearable.
I totally
Dr.
appreciate the
Kabiru
fact that
alluded to.
contractors go to the banks, financial institutions to borrow money to execute contracts. And then when payment is delayed, not only do they expose themselves to harassing conduct of financiers, but they also come under very difficult circumstances because their workers, they can't pay their workers. I totally understand. But it is a necessary thing we have to do. MPP did that, exactly that. But I said that because they held on to about 6 months. I was
in the road sector.
I was
You're a road minister,
6 months before they started paying. 6 months. But what they didn't do was that while they were not paying contractors, and MPP never paid contractors for the 8 years. Some contractors for the 8 years that is still.
How so?
Yes.
Some contractors were not
Some
paid for 8
contractors.
years.
Yes.
So not contractors. So
No, some contractors. I said some
Some
contractors.
contractors.
I said some contractors.
Yes, you said some, yeah.
I said some contractors, Kabiru. For the 8 years, they never paid some contractors.
Really?
Yes.
That's correct?
Yes, it's correct.
No, there is a reason why some
Yes.
contractors will
Because there
not
were
pay.
issues.
One, there are issues. Two, they process their payment to either the road fund. The road fund has released only some money, and they prioritize some payment, leaving some people. So it's like some contractors were at the mercy of a system, and it happens every government. We can go back to the NDC government and we tell some people
so
not
what
paid throughout
I'm
the
saying
period.
is-
So because of the discretion in the payment of contractors, he knows he's been there. When it's time for payment, we'll bring lists to him. He will prioritize those particular lists over the ordinary Ghanaians. So this is the reason.
But I didn't do that.
Yeah.
I didn't do
So-
that because and Kabiru and I pray that this current minister will not do
Abuja.
that. I didn't do that because I was keenly aware of the fact that no contractor has money under his bed and goes under his bed to take money to execute contracts.
Go to the bank.
They go to the bank. And when you delay payment, you erode the value of the contracts. That's why you can actually link shoddy work to delayed payments. Okay? So the contractor will have to make a lot of profit in anticipation of the delayed payments. When the payment is not done over an 8-year period, that money is gone. It's gone. Now, what they didn't do right was that while they kept the audit process ongoing for 6 months, they were giving out new contracts. So when finally they decided to pay, they pumped a lot of liquidity into the system. So we are not going to do that. It will require discipline. That yes, those who ought to be paid will be paid, even if it means sitting down with the contractors and agreeing on terms of payment. We will have to, because the inflation targeting regime that is being pursued is being pursued for the interest of the state, and particularly salaried workers. That look, we need to ensure that when people work and receive their monies, it will be money that is
That
valuable to them.
they can use for a while. The value of the money will not be eroded.
Eroded by inflation.
You know,
Then finally, and even though nobody said this, I've heard others say, oh, the NDC, and if in fact, Kabiru said part of it, that any finance minister could do what Atu is doing. But why didn't they do that? Why didn't Ken Ofurata do that?
He had other issues.
Yeah,
COVID, there was...
No.
there's
COVID
even-
brought in
they-
more.
they even- the reason why-
COVID brought in more resources than what we could even get in normal times. COVID brought in more than $3 billion of resources. Now, that was even external. the resources that we're able to mobilize internally was another about $1 billion internally. I mean, if you add central bank's reliefs to government, you will come to realize that COVID was a blessing to the MPP government because they got a lot of resources. But what did they do with those resources?
Kabiru disagrees. A quick one before I bring in the...
so my senior brother made a lot of political statements, and whilst he was commending us for staying professional, he put in a lot of political statements. And for instance, I just want to make some clarity here. The gold purchase program is different from the arrangement by the gold board. We shouldn't be confusing the two. The gold purchase program was an initiative of the central bank for the purposes of increasing the reserves. Even as we have gold board, that initiative is still ongoing by the central bank. The only difference now is that instead of the Bank of Ghana buying the gold themselves that they used to do, they are not buying from the gold board. That is not to say that whatever the gold board acquires, it goes to the central bank. The gold board, for instance, the 279 million we gave them was for purposes of trading in gold.
Gold, yes.
Right? It is not for gold purchase program. It is not for gold purchase program by the central bank.
Yes.
So that difference. And our regulatory regime is still the same. So to say that there was opacity, there was no clarity, there was no transparency as to how the gold purchase program was done is to be political with the issue. Because there was clear transparency, and even the IMF came to town. One of the issues they had, the near transparency, which was explained to them, was on the gold purchase program. So it's not the case that they were doing half as. And let me explain. When we did that program, all small-scale mining companies were to sell their goods to the BOG. And then 20% of large-scale mining companies will sell 20% of their total purchases or production to the gold board. So there was an arrangement. Clearly, I sat through some of the meetings, and the meetings concluded on this arrangement. But the difference is that the gold board, which was even done by the PMC, because PMC was even still doing good. The only difference now is that there is a legislation and a monopoly vesting every single product mine in one authority. It comes with disadvantages and disadvantages. We can discuss that. But that is the only difference under this current arrangement regarding the gold board. My senior brother also mentioned a point like tariff war is affecting all countries. Why Ghana? You see, when we do this analysis, and we make this kind of comments, you are basically telling us that you are not, look, external factors affect countries differently. How many of these countries export gold? And what is their percentage of gold export? So that is one. That's what. How many of what quantity of cocoa is sent by South Africa? You get the point. So we have two commodities we are exporting at a time that the external factors are favoring us. If a country doesn't have such exports, you don't expect the country to cash in. So exogenous factors may be affecting one country negatively and affecting another country positively. But sometimes when you do the analysis and you just say that, okay, why is it that only Ghana is benefiting? You have to take into consideration the structure of Ghanaian economy, the commodity that we trade. That is the only point you can understand why a factor could be favoring Ghana, but it's affecting another country. That is the point people miss. And when they come like, oh, why is it that Ghana is the only country that they are affected? That is not fair.
We heard a lot of that during the COVID time.
Good.
And we also heard a lot of that from your boss, who said, how can global crisis or global matters skip Cote d'Ivoire and come to Ghana?
Good.
So
and the question that would have raised, that anyone listening to the Vice President would have raised, which would have elicited a response, was that, what are the factors that we're dealing with? For instance, if you even talk about exchange rate, and you are comparing Ghana to a country that has fixed exchange rate like CFA, you are doing very poor analysis, right? You cannot compare our exchange rate regime to that of the CFA because they are running a fixed. Their exchange rate is not flexible. So sometimes when we are doing this politically, everyone finds convenience in it. But when we sit to educate the Ghanaian people, I would prefer that we throw in all the variables. That will allow people to understand what really we are saying. For instance, you can't tell me.
Uganda doesn't operate a flexible exchange rate system. Kenya doesn't. Tanzania doesn't. But all of these have have not appreciated much as the cedi has. Of course, I take the point about
Exactly.
the other conditions.
Exactly. For instance, how many of these coast countries have gold reserves? And that gold reserve was not done by this government. Majority of it, of the accumulation, which has brought certain, how do you even model perception? Was done by the MPP government. So definitely, if you are talking of internal factors, those internal factors are not solely that of the NDC.
So look at this. Sami Jemfi earlier made a post that, he's the CEO of the gold board. He said at the end of 2024, our gold reserves at the Bank of England stood at about 30 tons, yet $1 was selling at about 16 Ghana cedis. Our gold reserves
Are the gold reserve at the where? Bank of England. And so why is he even bringing this point? Don't even read the point. Don't even
our
read
gold
it.
reserves have increased by about 1 ton in 2025, and yet the dollar is selling at 13.2 today. This should tell you that the significant appreciation of the cedi and the drop in the dollar rate is not as a result of gold reserve accumulation per se. So if 30 tons of gold reserves under the MPP could not reduce the dollar rate to below 16 cedis, then 31 tons of gold reserves cannot magically reduce the dollar rate to 3.2 cedis. Simple logic, it says. So the exchange rate stability is primarily a function of demand and supply. The cedi is stronger today, not primarily because of our gold reserves, which, by the way, is not being depleted or injected to shore up the cedi. The facts show that our gold reserves is rather increasing. Fact is, exchange rate is more stable with the cedi appreciating today because of the significant surge in dollar inflows on the back of unprecedented gold exports. This has increased the supply of dollars in the market to meet and even exceed demand. Also, the cedi is appreciating because of restored confidence in the Ghanaian economy due to the prudent and credible fiscal and monetary policies adopted by the NDC Mahama government and the central bank. Well, he has a political point. But that's
Yeah, you see, Samir has even brought himself. I was avoiding that. And he has brought himself to the chopping box. And I hate it when people, just like he did over the weekend, what you will discuss, when you bring yourself to, in his post, he mentioned some time ago that they have exported about 30 tons, which translates to 2.7 billion. Where is that money? Where is the $2.7 billion? The central bank only has accumulated 500 million. Let's even add the amount they auctioned, which was another 500 million. That is 1 billion. Where is the 1.7 billion? I mean, these are the questions. The suspicion is that either they have way of injecting it illegally into the economy, or someone is keeping the dollar somewhere, because it's not in the Bank of Ghana's books. So that's what when you do such analysis and people are having reservation, and as someone with oversight over your responsibility, because working as the finance committee, there are questions I will reserve, waiting for the appropriate forum. But bringing this post brings the question to explain to the Ghanaian people where is the 1.7 billion excess of what is lodged at the central bank by way of our reserve and what was auctioned. Because you can't tell us that you exported 2.7 billion worth of goods. Then what we only have at the central bank is 500 million added to our reserves. Someone somewhere is giving the money to someone. And that is the explanation he should provide, not this kind of explanation. But that said, he mentioned about, look, how do you model perception? Perception can be as little as a needle, but it will have very wide and devastating impact on your economy than even something that could look very big. Okay, so when you say perception is not based on quantum. Perception is not a factor of quantum. It could be very infinitesimal, but people will put value on it over a humongous value. So it shouldn't be talking about, I mean, where it was one ton added and 30 ton added. And again, when I started the analysis, I mentioned that you cannot attribute the movement to one single factor. We all admit, I'm not discounting internal policies. And I'm saying that the internal policies also have their repercussions, which we'll face later. Now, Professor Asumeni mentioned a point. Asumeni mentioned a point. Look, if I were the finance minister, I would work on this steadily. The prime minister is basically front-loading the pressure. At a time that he's going to be paying contractors, paying for independent power producers, he was going to servicing loans. All these things will come and put pressure. But now, if he was paying gradually, even some of the debt, okay, mindful of if you like, mindful of the balance, paying some of the debt, he was not going to put pressure on him in 2022, because in 2022, my prediction is that the dollar, if it ends 15 this year, we are going to do 16.5 or 17 by the close of 2026 because of the pressure that is going to be on him.
Very well.
Okay, so these are the factors that we need. And lastly, you cannot owe and go around in town claiming that you are doing well. You have to first settle your debt. And if you say the finance minister is good, if the finance minister is saying that, if he's saying that they are going to spend, I agree. You have to spend on productive sector. But the amount you are owing, some of them were done in the productive sector. You have to pay. If you don't pay and you are holding people's money and you are in town saying that I am doing so well, I mean, that is not how you should be seen paying your debt and then be seen managing your debt with your opulence. Then people can then begin to say that, well, he's really doing well because he's servicing his debt. But you cannot be owing people and you want people to then praise you that, oh, I'm managing, you are starving me, you are robbing Paul to pay Peter, and you then say that Paul should not complain because Peter is doing well. That is not how we manage economy. I mean, design an act of balancing between the two. And I think that the finance minister has not done that so far. He has not balanced between satisfying obligations that are expected of him. Auditing is not an excuse. Because there are some of the debt that has been audited and certified. You can start paying those. You can say that
you will pay those.
For instance, look, we'll come to IPPs. Why is Mr. Jinapo crying? He's crying because car power alone has 400 million.
He's crying because you left him huge debt.
I'm saying he's crying because car power has 400 million. Every government owes some debts. And they pay to keep the light on. Right? So it is his responsibility. If the amount is due at your time, you should pay. When we are coming to, they will give them some money from the SLA. There was some money. So after even living with debt, there was some money left for you. So you cannot just say that we left you debt, so therefore you are not going to pay. There was also some resources left. The last point I just want to make is that it's not a case. As my brother mentioned, that COVID gave us more resources than expenditure. It's not true.
Yeah, really?
Now, let's quantify the cost of COVID. Went into the free everything that they give under COVID. The hospitals that let's wait.
But that was a policy of government.
Let me come.
The water. How many months did you get?
No, whatever month it was at a cost to the state. I'm mentioning all the cost. But you are losing the argument, Salom. Well, it's not about the length. It's about the cost. That's what we are focused. It's not about how long it could be for one day, but the cost of it goes into.
But that was a policy choice.
No, I agree. So don't say that. I'm not discounting. I'm not having issue with the policy choice. Every government has a policy. But if you say, as a statement of fact, that COVID gave us more money than we spend,
so even add the free things, it will be more. Add the free things.
No. The cost of hospital, Agenda 111, where as a result of COVID, because the decision was taken that on the back of COVID, we need to do hospital infrastructure. Aside this, there was tax exemption given to frontline health workers and allowances. That was on the back of COVID. COVID also caused us about the economy, about the size of the economy for that way. We grew by almost 0.5%. So that was the cost of COVID. People don't factor that into the cost of COVID. If your economy was growing about 7% and you are growing 0.5%, the cost of that is
there were policy choices. There were policy choices.
It is policy choices. But when you make an argument, who bears the thing? I'm not talking about the ultimate responsibility was on the government. But I'm saying that if you sit on radio or on television and say that COVID gave you more money than your expenditure, and I'm saying that it's not true, because when you do that, you are limited in your analysis because you fail to factor in.
With the analysis, have you been able to quantify, how much money Ghana may have lost vis-a-vis what Ghana
I could. If you give me 30 minutes, if you give me 1 hour, I could sit down and look at the cost of the economy on COVID.
But by now, you guys should have done that.
No, I'm saying that I could. The monitor authority, people responsible probably would have done that. And if I'm not on the table,
you should be in the
at a point in time, I was not even, because I was a parliamentary candidate. I was working. So that is explainable. So, but if you give me that, I can give you the cost of COVID. The cost to the economy alone is far more than any money government has received.
Irrespective of how much the
irrespective of what.
injected.
So now he mentioned that BOG.
Irrespective of tapping into the stabilization fund, money from the World Bank.
Let me tell you why it is that. It is still that because at the end of that year, we posted negative deficit. right? So it means that whatever expenditure you had done for that year far outweighs the revenue you had received.
Yeah,
That's a starting point.
That's where the prudence comes in. We know how
We are
the
not.
COVID funds.
You can go into the prudence. It's a different discussion.
So if I give you money and you go and
Sell up. You can talk about prudence. It's a different discussion, but you cannot tell me that you gave him more money than I spended the money. I don't know where you get the point. You cannot tell me. We can go to the propriety of the expenditure. It's a different discussion that I'm willing to have with you.
Yes.
But you cannot say
if I
that.
give you more money and you blew it on things which are
Whatever it is, I have spent the money. That is a different discussion.
How you spend is the matter.
I agree, and I'm saying that.
Have recouped it.
No, Salo, I agree with you that we can go into the propriety of the expenditure. If you want us to discuss the propriety of the expenditure, it's a different discussion we can have. But I'm saying that it is not right to say that you gave me 1 million and the amount you spent was not up to 1 million.
No, we didn't say that.
That is why, because you said COVID gave us more money than we spent. That's the point you
So
made.
the point you are making is that COVID gave more money and you spent all and spent in excess of that.
No, that is the point. That's the point I'm making. I'm saying the COVID brought in
Irrespective of the
solutions.
prudence.
We go to the prudence. That's what I'm saying. That if we want to discuss the prudence, we can. I'm saying that COVID gave us money, but the expenditure for that year far outweighs the COVID money.
Yes. We are not going
That's
into
the point.
the propriety.
The propriety.
Whether it was spent rightly.
Right or no, it's a different discussion,
Yeah,
and I'm willing to have it. So now let's go to the
divorce
propriety.
that from
No, I'm not losing it because you made the point.
Wait, let me read some messages.
Yeah,
a few messages.
We can go to the propriety,
A few
and I'm
messages
willing
that
to
have
have it.
come
But
through. Toby Dogu says, I got it at 13 cities to the dollar from ABSA Bank. This one from Novigro Bernard, Tactic from Tegbit Bota says, you don't need a prophet to tell you that the MPP would have introduced new taxes, probably named U.S. war levy. Please ask Mr. Dr. Kabiru, is Russia and Ukraine war over before the Cedi is appreciating? Effective collaboration between the BOG, Finance Ministry, and the Gold Board is a cornerstone of the appreciation of the Cedi. This one from Musa Kofi in Kintampo South says, the Cedi's recent appreciation against the dollar is short-lived and should not be attributed to the efforts of Ghana's purported economic experts. Rather, it reflects a decline in global demand for the US dollar, an outcome rooted in fundamental economic principles. Mr. Wingobit, this is why I bring you in. Chris Akume sends a message and he says that the prices find their own levels according to economic variables. Okay, this one, Anyako Adam Smith says the expectation of Ghanaians that prices of commodities must fall as the dollar falls is unfortunate. It is an expectation which is in a haste. Obviously, it will take some time, 4 months and over, for prices of commodities to reflect the fall of the dollar. Traders fix prices of goods according to the cost of acquisition of the commodity. We should not expect sellers to sell goods at prices below the cost of acquisition. Commodities are not tomatoes, where the fear of it getting rotten will force the vendor to do a forced sale or forced reduction. I think we must massage our expectations for low prices to the immediate future and not now, even if the dollar continues to fall. So yeah, that's from Anyako Adam Smith. Samson Asake Abungobit, Executive Secretary of the Importers and Exporters Association of Ghana. Talk to me about how your members are feeling or cashing in quotes, on this appreciation of the Cedi against the dollar. You guys have always complained that the dollar was squeezing the Cedi and that was making things very difficult for you guys. Now that the Cedi appears to be doing the opposite, I mean squeezing the dollar, how is it translating in the kind of things you do, and what benefits are we likely as the consuming public to get from what your importers and exporters do?
Thank you very much. A very big good morning to you and your cherished listeners. Let me say a very big good morning to my two big brothers in the studio there. Former Member of Parliament and former Minister of Road and Highway, Honorable Enis Opusini, is a big brother and father. Honorable Kabiru, the MP from Honorable Member for Wadawale, is a big brother or a younger brother. I don't know whether between myself and Kabiru Senior, but he's so he serves me. So, my brother, I'm happy to be here this morning. Let me say that the business community is embracing the good work put by the current government. Yes, as we do know, that government is a continuation. But however, we need to recognize Bob Marley. Is it Bob Marley who said that where he who fit the cap, let him wear it? Is that, am I right?
Yes. He who the cap fits,
Shalom.
let him.
Is it
He
Bob
who
Marley
the
who
cap
made that
fits,
quote?
let him wear it. Yes, Bob Marley. Yeah.
Exactly, because a few months ago, we were buying dollar at 14 cities and more, isn't it? Inflation was hovering between 22, 23, thereabout, some few months ago. In fact, some few years ago, inflation was hovering around 54. We were buying dollars at 16, at 17 cities. And so if after 4 months or after 3 months, after 5 months, hard work, that the government, the new government has put in place to bring sustainability, stability for the past 3 weeks consistently. And we do know that we're now entering into the 4th week. What we can do is to applaud them, to tap them and say, look, let my very good brother, Honorable Kabiru, understand that the previous government that he was part of, that left office a few months ago, Minister of Finance and then Governor of Bank of Ghana were not in talking terms. They were not communicating because at the point
They were not on talking terms, or they were not communicating as much as they should.
Then the Governor of Bank.
I mean, if you say they were not on talking
terms, they were
terms,
not communicating as two institutions are supposed to work.
Okay.
Yeah, so you are a lawyer, so you put it in the right perspective. What I'm saying is that these two institutions must work together. At the point, you remember that at the point, Dr. Adeshin held a press conference and said he was raising the prime rate because Commissioner Bank should also raise their interest to fight inflation. Remember, yet inflation went as far as 54%. When we want to raise the issue about the inflation, he said he's in charge of monetary policy and not fiscal policy. About fiscal policy, we should go to the Ministry of Finance. But you know, these two institutions work in tandem. Fiscal policy should go along with monetary policy to be able to bring confidence of inflation down, bring confidence of steady stability. And that's what Dr. Eshema and Honorable Atofwashin has done. And so we need to applaud them and say that, look, going forward, they need to work together because the government, the president put them there to help him give confidence to business and woo more investors into this country. With these days, you will see the number of investors who will be looking for to come to Ghana. And I can tell you, even he talk about government external debts and payment and stuff. If the city can appreciate against the dollar, what it means that government will get more money to pay to service its loans. But because government was going to take more cities to look for fewer dollars or to look for dollars to pay external debts. And so we should be happy. Indeed, yes, like the Tesca said, that we buy commodity with exchange, a specific exchange. But the truth of the matter is that if I'm selling my a unit price, gone at the days or a few weeks or a few months ago, or a year ago, if one gets a shop at Osuka, at Okanshi, you will want to call Alaji to find out how much is the rate today before you can price your goods. Because at the end of the day, if you sell 2 unit, 3 unit, 4 unit items, you will go and buy the dollar and put down. You wouldn't want to wait for the dollar to start going up against the city. But as we speak now, if I was pricing my goods at 20 cities or at 15 cities, because dollar was 14 cities, and now dollar has come to 12.3, and dollar is even available at the Commercial Bank, nobody will go to allow you to look for money, to look for Forex to be able to do this transaction. It's a good thing. It should reflect into prices of goods and services. And I can tell you, I'm happy to announce to you that truly prices of goods are coming down. A freighter, just 2-3 days ago, my wife told me that the freighter they used to buy 1,000, 2,000 or so, it had come to 650 or 700. That is drastically drop of price of goods in the market. And so, yes, there's no law, and I'm happy that the Honorable Minister of Trade, Honorable Elizabeth Ajari, did engage with the stakeholders and appeal in her presentation. She said, we can't force us, they can't force us, but they can prevail, appeal. That's the word. If it were to be a few months ago, when my brother, Honorable Kabiru, and his government was in power, we could have seen his Minister of Trade running to Parliament, helter-skelter, Why? Because nobody was casing him. Why? Because he was trying to get an ally to say, look, once government is able to work to bring down city confidence, city has been appreciated against the dollar, then he must regulate us, or he would want a law having this majority in parliament. He would have gone to parliament and say, give me a law to go and compel traders to reduce the price at all costs. Forgotten that the good news is call them, talk to them, lobby with them, and then they will do what you want, than to say you want to compel us. Remember, about a few months ago, Honorable Kabiru, even though he wasn't in parliament at that time, but he was in government, the Minister of Trade at the time ran to parliament to say that he wanted to regulate the cement about 21 line items. Remember, he took an ally to parliament. We stood on our feet, we fight it. To say he cannot get through that without consulting anybody. Remember?
Great.
And so, even at that time, what was the rate of the city?
Great.
What was the rate of the city? So I can tell you, the previous government did nothing, completely nothing, read from my lips. They did nothing to bring confidence of the city. Even at the point, I remember, at the point when the city went as far as 16 cities, I said, I got an interview, and I'm sure if you go to your archive, you see, I said the government deliberately made the city fall flat so that our people who are imported, the importers who are bringing goods to the country, will go to the port, at the port, the customs are using the dollar rate in calculating duty. And so when they use 16 cities and you are paying $20,000 and you are converted to Ghana city, you could see how much money government was making. They were raking that money. But they were killing Ghanaians. They were reducing Ghanaian purchasing power.
Yes. So,
that was it.
Yes.
That was the issue.
So
that led up to many people winding up. Yeah.
Very well. Per your analysis.
Many companies wind up in that period and relocated to Africa and the rest. Remember?
Mr. Aringobi, per your analysis, do you think that the appreciation of the cedi is a sustainable? Is sustainable? The analysis around the table today is that, of course, there are external factors and there are domestic factors as well. The external factors may abate at some point. I mean, the tariff war, etc., may come to an end at some point. Let me finish. May come to an end at some point. Our major exports, cocoa, gold, crude, cocoa and gold especially, have seen some appreciation, and that is helping us. It may not continue that way forever. We have not seen any structural change in the economy. So these are just things which may not last for long. I don't know. Per your analysis, have you considered all of that? And is it your conclusion that this trend is sustainable?
Is he saying the previous government didn't have gold and cocoa prices that went up high? Is that what he's trying to say? I think the person who's saying should say this to JSS students, not me. My background is marketing. I did small economics. I did port and shipping at my master's level. We understand where we are talking. The analysis is that the government has put in prudent measures in place. One, government has been able to cut down ministers from 88 or so, or 83 at the time my brother Kabiru in his government was there, to 60. In fact, as we speak, some ministers do not have deputy ministers. That's the government has been able to push so many policies, launch so many policies and programs. And you remember quite recently, the president just inaugurated a committee to talk about Export Accelerated Development Council. You remember? I'm a member to that committee. Because he brought expertise together. The word of whatever political party they come from. You want to have experts to support the government to think about what can we do. We can do more export. Does export in Ghana only lies on cocoa and gold? No. We have not traditional communities that we've not made much noise about it. And I think that we should be talking about how to add on value addition to. And that is why the Minister of Minister of Trade now have the agribusiness as an agency under the ministry. The issue is to add more additional value to whatever non-traditional commodities that we are producing here and export more. So we are going to look for more export. I'm going to encourage the government that we should look for more export. We should do more traditional export. If you go to the U.S. market now, as we speak, they need even our small mango. One will come from Kabiru, Honorable Fusini, we are all from the north. I'm from the Boko side. He's from the Walla northeast. Inusa is from the north region. When you are coming all over to Wulisi, Bimbla, to Nkwanta, your area, crossing the Oti and coming down to Hawa, you see plenty of mangoes. We need, what can we do to export more that will bring the forest back? Quite apart from that, I strongly believe that the at the point, Honorable Dr. Addison said they were uploading, is it $40 million or how much every 2 weeks to the commercial banks. But the point is the fund will get to the bank. Then in the afternoon, the fund it will go to Alaji, and Alaji now determine the rate. What it means is that my appeal to this current government is that the governor of Bank of Ghana should step up his monitoring team. Him and Dr. Sherman and his two deputies, they should step up monitoring team, say that sometimes they should even disguise themselves as clients. What if they give the forex to the commercial banks? Walk into the commercial banks, ask for forex, and see whether is the forex available in the bank. What we do see, you will go to the commercial bank, you will see their rate crawling. Yet when you put in your money, want to transfer or international transaction, then they'll come back to tell you that you don't have bank, Alaji can have it. Where did Alaji get the forex from? Meanwhile, governor of Bank of Ghana or meanwhile Bank of Ghana upload this forex to this commercial bank. Yes. So they should be able to make sure that money that goes to the commercial bank to use for trading is to be done internally, not to give it out to Alaji and force the business community to go to Alaji to go and buy at a higher rate. If the government is able to do this, I can tell you sustainability will be here for us, and we are even praying that during the budget statement, remember during campaign 2024 election, President Mahama assured us, business community gave the report, and that he saw our line items of duties and taxes that we pay. It was about 22 line items. And so when he becomes, if God bless and he won the government, he will make sure that they will do rationalization of the fees and charges and taxes at the port for us. We are looking forward to that engagement. Then the other issue is we want to see the government giving them a fixed rate at the port. The point whether the dollar will go up to 13 tomorrow, the dollar will go up to 14 tomorrow. Let's say the government is saying at the port, customs to use 10 cedis for the rate. For the next 3 months, for the next 4 months, quarterly, subject to review. That could also bring down a cost of doing business at the port. Then that will reflect into the market, and that will reflect into the purchasing power.
Great.
As it stands now, Ghanaian.
Very well. So yes, thanks so much.
Yeah, you want to say something?
I think that point has been made. So I wanted to move to Prof. and then bring in Adomako Kisi Esquire on the other matters. So just hang in there. Prof, I mean, the government is not spending, etc. The view is that the rate at which the appreciation could be slowed down a bit, so that when government begins spending and government begins doing other things, the depreciation may not be very sharp. Sitting where you sit, what do you think is the strategy that government is using? Of course, it's not the first time a thing like this is happening. In 2017, we saw a similar trend around this time. That was how come the former vice president, I think at an event of the 100 days or so, I can't remember, said that the dollar had been locked up and the key had been given to the IGP. It was because the Cedi was doing well around the same time against the dollar. So this trend appears to be a bump which comes from the change of government, etc. Of course, this administration may be doing a few things differently that may be contributing to this. How do you think that this process should be managed? That's one. And what else can we do to ensure that this appreciation that we are seeing is generally sustainable, so we do not see a sharp decline or depreciation in the near future?
Well, I think that the strategy has been clear, and the accumulation of good reserves has become an essential component of the strategy. So as has been explained, I think obviously started with the gold purchase program. We've also seen that the gold board has been set up. I think it's going to deal with the marketing side of the gold. I mean, to regulate who can export gold and bring some sanity in that. So I think that part of the strategy is clear. Now we have to understand that even with the accumulation of gold reserves, if the price of gold starts reducing from its levels, then our reserve position will not be as great as it currently is. And if the economy starts recovering, then there's always a chance that the price of gold might come down. So while, I think the major difference between the one that we saw before and this is that there's a clear strategy here. There's a clear long-term strategy. I don't think the gold purchase program is going to be stopped. And I think the gold board is able to sanitize the gold marketing space and bring additional gold and additional savings. All of that will help. But I think that we also know that some additional pressures are going to come from 2026. So it's very important that we keep expanding our export base. I mean, so far, our exports have been doing extremely well. It's not just gold, actually. I think cocoa has also done very well, and even non-traditional exports have done well. The government has made it clear that part of its strategy is to do export diversification, and there's also been talk about some import substitution. I think for now, we do have some space. I think that if you look at the volume of reserves that have been accumulated and where we are now, I think, in the medium term, at least up to the end of the year, perhaps we'll be able to manage, assuming that we don't allow further appreciation of the currency. Because if you allow the currency to appreciate further, it gets more difficult to stabilize it. So the question is whether we will let it roll back a little bit and stabilize it there around the 14, 15 range. We see what they will do. But obviously, over the long term, I think what we have to do is to change the financing of the economy. I think the dependence on foreign financing is one of the remaining elements that we have to deal with. If you look, our trade balance has been in surplus since 2017. But within that period, we realized that while the trade balance was always a surplus, because the economy is too dependent on foreign financing and we are always servicing loans, we are always paying foreign companies, and then obviously in the first quarter, when foreign companies have to repatriate their profit, the pressure on the city comes. So I think to insulate that, we need to really think over the next 10 or 5 to 10 years, how we will gradually roll back and rely more on domestic sources of financing our long-term development. I think that is something that we have to do. And while we are doing that, in the meantime, whatever we can do to cut down on, import of things that we don't really necessary, it's not necessary for us to import. There's absolutely no excuse for us to be extremely dependent on food import as we are at the moment. So I think the investment in agric and the investment in agro-processing, I think it's still the way to go. But like I said, we also have to add diversifying or reducing our reliance on foreign financing. I think that is a big source of volatility. Every time there's a swing, something may not be happening domestically, but anytime something happens in other markets, then, short-term funds start moving. There's something that the BOG did before, which was to allow foreign participation in a short-term Cedi-denominated assets. I think it would be good to roll that back. Now that we have, where we are now, that we are not dependent so much on Eurobonds, I think finding ways to sustain it, even when we exit the IMF program, I think that's going to be good because, see, when those Eurobond funds flow in, we are happy. But we have to understand that nobody put $1 in a Ghanaian economy unless they're going to get more than $1 back. So when it's time for us to service loans, then all the pressure comes again. I think to reduce the volatility once and for all, we should consider that. And of course, the government should implement its strategy to modernize agriculture and then also do the export diversification. But I think what I have to say is that we've heard this before. As Ghanaians, we should stop applauding ourselves for formulating fine-sounding policies. We do that all the time. It's the implementation that has to be the difference. So we wait to see the ideas that have been communicated. They sound good on paper. We wait to see how the implementation will go. But I think what I haven't heard too much is the one I keep emphasizing, and that is we need to think critically about how we finance this economy. We can't go back to financing the economy using Eurobonds. I think that's just not going to. It's never, if we keep doing that, the volatility of the currency is not going to go away, no soon.
I see. what will be your outlook for the Cedi next week? Given the trend, do you think or expect that it will continue appreciating, or you think that it will slow down a bit in its appreciation against the dollar?
Well, I think we are beginning to see some form of tapering in terms of the rate of day-to-day or week-to-week appreciation. If you check when it started, you will have a day where it will move from 14.9, the next day is at 14.4. But now you see that the rate of appreciation has slowed down quite dramatically. So I take that to mean that we are kind of heading towards, we are heading towards bottoming up. So perhaps there's a sense that we are planning to stabilize it around the 12 mark. Obviously, it won't be a good strategy to let it turn around quickly. So my expectation is that we should stay within the 12.3 range that we are, if anything, not go below, definitely not go below 11.9 or something like that.
I see. But I mean, there was a statement very popular, it's still popular today. Said if the fundamentals are weak, the exchange rate will expose you. Here we are, this is the exchange rate we have. Does that mean that the fundamentals are strong now?
I think, so if you think about the fundamentals of the exchange rate, there are many aspects. I think if you look at the long-term trend, it comes down to your export and your import. I think the export side has improved a fair amount. So in that, there's been some improvement on that side. And then also another component of the fundamentals is public finances. And as we have heard, I think government has tried to rein in on the spending. If you look at the 2025 budget, it's one of the stiffest forms of short period consolidation I've seen. But we know that it's something that you can only do for 1 year, or you can do maximum 2 years, because this is a year after the election. The government obviously knows that it has a lot of goodwill, so you can begin to push in the stiff measures. What the finance minister calls shock therapy. You can't implement a shock therapy the following year. It's not going to happen, because you have to start implementing your programs, and people need to start seeing results. So I think there's a way to maintain some fiscal discipline and still implement your programs. And I think the big elephant in the room is what they're going to do with the VAT reforms, as well as what additional measures they will bring to stabilize the revenue or to boost revenue collection in the mid-year review. Because what we did in the 2025 budget is really rein in expenditure, manage the expenditure so that it will help stabilize the fiscal side. But you can't keep doing that every year. So let's wait and see what the government will do in the mid-year review to tell us where the additional revenues are going to come from. And then if we're able to get something more convincing, then we know that government finances are going to be stronger going forward.
Very well. Nice one. Let me bring in Apia Adomaku Kisi Esquire, the West African Regional Director for CATS International. CATS International does a lot of things. Amongst the things they do, consumer advocacy, etc. There's been concerns from various consumer groups that the dollar, when you go to the market, a lot of the conversation is around the dollar, that the dollar is appreciating against the cedi. That is why they keep increasing the prices of goods, etc. Now that we have seen this trend, and of course, Trade Minister engaged with the trading groups, they now say that we should give them a period of 60 days within which they hope to sell off their wares and then get in new ones, which will come at this rate. I don't know what the consumer advocacy groups, CATS International, for example, would think about this. Mr. Adomaku, good morning. Welcome to the program. This explanation makes some sense because you bought it at a certain rate. The things are still there. The fact that the rate has changed doesn't mean that you sell those things at the new rate. You run at a loss. Does that make sense?
Good morning, Salom and your viewers. I think that the 60-day period which the government has given the traders associations have given to the to adjust prices, I think it's so much, it's unfair to consumers. This is because businesses are clearing goods on daily basis at the port. And when you clear your goods today at, let's say, 12.5 or 12.6, and some of these businesses, they import the goods, and when the goods arrive, they have about 60 to 90 days to pay their goods. So they have not even paid for the goods to the manufacturer. And so if you are telling us that we should wait for 60 days before we start to see the gains on the Cedi on the prices, I think that is not fair. That's number one. Number two, largely government cannot, regulate prices. However, there are some businesses who can reduce their price. For example, let's say we are all selling mobile phone at 15 cedis, and then somebody clear his goods, let's say on Monday, and another person can sell at 10 cedis. And because the person is selling at 10 cedis, selling at that 10 cedis will put competitive pressure on those who are selling it at 15 cedis. So eventually, the goods, that one who is selling at 15 cedis will have to bring his prices down to be able to compete. So I don't think that the 60 days period, though government has said, the market also has a way of correcting itself. And let me also say something here, Samson. Salom, we have also been fixated about price of goods, but not the price of services. And I think that is a place that it's been a blind spot for policymakers and almost the media. Early this year, we've seen that the price of some services have been going up. About a month ago or so, the Multi-Choice Ghana increased its subscription up by 15 to 20%. And all because the company is based in South Africa, and to make sure that they're able to keep on to their remittances flow, they have to be able to adjust their subscription prices so that they will not lose out. But nobody is talking about that. The prices of other services, at mobile data, that also went up. Telecel has served as a notice that its data prices will go up on 28th, 29th of this month. All of these things were based on the fact that this is a multinational company, and they buy some equipment in dollars, and they also have to pay their shareholders wherever they are. And so to make sure that they do not lose their capital, they have to adjust the price at which they sell their product. And so I think we also need to situate this conversation in the areas of services so that they also can adjust their prices downwards.
I see. But the point is that maybe it's a point belabored. Nobody trades to lose. And we are saying generally that we hope that the rate is sustained. But it doesn't appear that it will be sustained. I mean, the Cedi may lose a few grounds against the dollar. So now I rush to go and price my goods based on the rates today. Tomorrow, I finish selling, then I'm unable to buy the same quantity. That will not be prudent business practice. Yes, they shop at DSTV and all of that, I agree. But in terms of our local traders in Makola and Abosokan, etc., is their logic not sound?
I don't think their logic is grounded in best practice. Fuel prices went down yesterday up to 7 to 8%. And are they also not importing the fuel from Europe with USD? So if fuel prices can see regular downward trend, but we don't expect the goods that we purchased at Abosokai and Makola and other market centers to go down, it means that we are not being fair. Of course, we are not in a price-regulated economy. This is a free market. However, A free market does not give you the right to do things in a way that goes against consumers. Unfortunately, we do not have any regulator of the market, so businesses are doing all that they want to do. I remember back in 2022, when the city was facing some severe adversities, prices of goods were going up, sometimes were jumping 3 times. I remember at that time I was trying to buy some product. I got the invoice in the morning. I dispatched my driver to go there to pay for the thing. When the driver got there, they said that, look, the price have gone up. So I should top up. I have to top up about 8,000 cedis to be able to pay for the thing.
Wow.
And they said that one of the items was not available, so they should come the following morning to pick it up. When he got there, they said, oh, that item price has also gone up within the last 8 hours. Look at what they are doing to consumers. Whenever there's a price appreciation of there's a depreciation of the cedi, the businesses are using expected, projection of the cedi to the dollar to price. However, when it is the cedi is appreciating against and the consumers have to benefit, then they try to play around other things. They try to play on other things against the cedi, against the consumers. So we need to do, and of course, we don't have a consumer protection law. We do not have a competition law in the country. So it's become more like whatever the businesses will do, let them do that and then cheat on the consumers. I think it's not fair. Even if the cedi appreciates for even 1 week or so, let the consumers also feel the benefit of the appreciation of the cedi.
Very well.
Fuel prices, we know that it may go up again when the cedi doesn't do well, but at least now for the past 6 windows, we've seen that gradually every 2 weeks the price of fuel is going down, and we are getting relief. Should we say that, oh, the cedi, this is not sustainable, so we should allow the OMCs and the BDCs to keep the gains on the cedi? That is not the best.
I see. Great. Thanks so much, Mr. Pierre Kusi Adumako. Let me come to you studio and wrap up on this particular matter. The Honorable Idris of Husseini, what's the way forward now? I mean, should we be cautious in how we are making the cedi appreciate, or we should just go ahead and continue doing it? And what do you expect in the coming week? You expect the cedi to still be posting such impressive rounds, or you think it will taper a bit or perhaps begin depreciating, or the appreciation will slow down?
So, so first of all, you must appreciate that there's a clear strategy, and Prof. Siama alluded to that clear strategy. The government has in mind where it thinks that a combination of all the strategies can bring the cedi up to. We have obvious gains if we are able to stabilize the cedi. Yes, I agree that the sharp rise or sharp accumulation of value of the cedi is also a matter of concern, because it robs people of the opportunity to plan. And see, even the discussion you had with the cuts clearly points in that direction, because traders are finding it difficult to reduce their prices because of the sharp decline in the value of their imports, and they want to recoup as much as possible the initial amounts of money they used in importing those goods. So government has a clear strategy, but it bears repetition to say that the monetary policy of the central bank presently is inflation anchoring. Because you see, you are going to be, there's a lot of liquidity in the system. And we appreciate what liquidity does, the excess liquidity does to the stability of the currency. So the government is working assiduously through the central bank to be able to mop up that liquidity. And yes, like Dr. Kabiru said, that congruence in policy between fiscal and monetary is deliberate. It's deliberate because you cannot be doing one thing and reversing that thing by another institution. And so at a point when government is satisfied that this is the point to start to stabilize the cedi, you see a loosening of the policy. We don't want to create the impression that the cedi will appreciate. We want to give the people of Ghana the comfort of believing that this policy can stabilize the cedi at a certain point, not even 14, at a certain point between, like he has said, between 12 cities and 13 cities, close of year. And so people can expect that the dollars that they have now will maintain a certain value. And those who cannot keep the dollars that they have now will offload it onto and that's just like that's what is happening now. Many people, when the cedi was appreciating so fast, had to rush to offload their dollars onto the markets. And so, yes, I think that government will work to ensure, and it bears understanding that the issues addressed by Prof are issues that have agitated our minds. How do we ensure that we finance our infrastructure projects by accessing funds locally? First of all, they're going to be cedi denominated. So you're not going to import the volatilities of the dollar into your system. So how do we ensure? And there are many funds that are available in Ghana, and government is exploring the possibility of using those funds, entering an arrangement to use those funds to be able to develop our country. It's way cheaper. It's way cheaper to develop your country. And I say that when we were at the Ministry of Roads and Highways, and then we did this road fund, and then we did the enhanced road fund inflows funds into the road fund account. We're able to do many projects. That's simply awarding contracts in cedi denominated terms and not dollar denominated. Because when you award contracts in dollar denominated terms, variations and fluctuations affect so you award a project, and then by the end completion date of the project is far above the amount of money that. So it's very expensive. Again, we don't think that we need to terminate those projects that were awarded. We realize that part of the build-up of the costs that this government has to pay is the fact that MPP terminated most of the projects. And when they came back to re-award those projects, they were re-awarded at 3 times the initial cost at which they were awarded. And so the best we could do is to stagger the implementation and not terminate, because we realize that the longer a project delays, the more the cost rises. And so there are a lot of things that are being done, and I just hope that we will stay true to the cause and exhibit some level of fidelity to the policy, and ensure that we hold all those who are implementing those programs, because it must be a coordinated action. Whether it is 24-hour economy, whether it's accelerated export development, whatever. The cocoa, the 200 hectares of cocoa farms going into production, the inland port at Yagba, whatever should be a coordinated plan of action. Great. So that finally, when your mama is handing over the economy, you can see a clear path of growth that we want to take this country.
Very well. We need to go, but just to tease you on a bit. Are the fundamentals strong? Or that statement no longer is true?
Well, so on that statement, I want to agree with Prof. As meaning that it depends on the fundamentals you are looking at and their relationship with the exchange rate.
But we thought it was a universal statement.
No, that was a political statement. When they make fundamental, it's not every fundamental that is correlated to the exchange rate. So you have to posit his statement in context. It's referring to fundamentals that affect the movement of the exchange rate. So that is sometimes what we need to do. Again, when we mentioned that fundamentals are not bad as they were painted just some 3-4 months ago, we had a lot of argument. And we argued, they are talking of trade balances. We had the current surplus of current accounts. We were insisting that our trade position is not doing bad. But the NDC will not listen to that. They were of the view that, look, the economy was criminal, mismanaged, but those are the variables now we are now using to back the strength of the economy. That said, you see, the exchange rate situation is not just the depreciation or appreciation. I'm much even more particular about the effective exchange rate. The effective exchange rate, in this discussion, no one has adverted our minds to that. That it's not just the exchange rate per se, but as we go and we look at the exchange rate, we have to begin talking about the effective exchange rate, which of this, which of course, based on the relative prices of other currencies. So it's important. Again, I want to put on record that there's a slow in the appreciation of the cedi. In all sincerity, from all, the cedi has got to his best performing position now.
The Absa Ghana Market Insight mentions that, or suggests that the real effective exchange rate has appreciated to its most stretched level in at least a decade. So maybe buttresses your point that we've reached a very stretched position.
There's no way we can have further and much more significant appreciation of the cedi. And if you observe the movement from Tuesday, you realize that it has not moved as fast as it was. And even if you look from today, it's going up. Because yesterday, online, it was 14.0. It's now, 12.40. Now it's now 12.44. So basically, it's beginning to rise again. So it has gotten to his best performing point. And for me, I'll be very surprised unless you give it a stimuli that it will go further again. That is the best performing position in the currency. And I'm further fortified in this belief because you look at the performance of the gold, it is also coming down. So it means that people are now gravitating towards the dollar. So these two views, looking at internal movement of the currency and also the fact that global development in the market, give him the sense that the gold prices are now coming down, the cedi has got his performing point. Now, at what point, I just think now it's okay, just like Prof. Asimin says, we should try to ensure stability because in the previous government, around this time, we have similar performance. Of course, different factors might have accounted. Confidence is one. Different policy. It was the same performance of the cedi that we had in the first quarter of the previous government in their first term. So for me, this is what we are. I don't expect, and the cedi will not go down further from what I am seeing and from what I'm monitoring. It will take a miracle that will have the cedi coming to 12 or coming to 11 before it starts to depreciate again. Lastly, on this same factor, I again mentioned, and because Mr. Semin Jeffrey brought it, I would urge that the Bank of Ghana should come clear on the difference between what Semin Jeffrey reported as Forex coming in on the back of gold sale and what is in their books. Because we cannot sit down and then someone report that I have 2.7 billion of receipts. And the Bank of Ghana books only shows that some 500 million of foreign reserve have been added. I mean, it doesn't make sense. So he has to come clear on this particular matter, and then we will be able to know where the remainder of the forex, because it goes into the credibility and stability of our currency as well. And lastly, Mr. Asaki mentioned a lot of points. I don't think that I will not want to respond to them, but that is the problem we face when a politician is speaking on behalf of an association. In this case,
it's a PNC politician.
That's the point. In this case, he was speaking like a PNC, but not representing the association, because when you are to represent an association, you have to put all your concerns in the basket.
The concerns are those erased.
No, the concerns are not there, because he knows very well that this government didn't hand over an exchange rate of 17 to them. But as a politician, when you are referring to 17, it's basically a political statement.
No, at some point, it went to 17.
At some point, but you don't look at, just like at some point. You also mentioned
inflation at 54.
Good, at some point, but these are not the point. Are we saying that at some point this government was doing 15%? We're not talking about that now. Because at some point, this government was also doing. I'm making this point that at some point, this same government we are commending that there's something happening, was doing 15%. I mean, 15. Right, but we're not talking. We are talking of what the status quo is now and what the status quo was before the MPP handed over. And that's something. When you begin to go that, you are twisting and you are throwing dust, and you are creating the sense that, I mean, things were very bad, like 17 when you took over, but it wasn't so. And I'm repeating yesterday or 2 days ago, I was on this, came here and someone was saying, look, you were doing 17%, and even their social media communicated, but that wasn't the status quo.
What was the status? How much was it when you left?
It was about 15 when this government handed over. In fact, it was not exactly 15, but just to be fair to analysis and give them the highest band, it was around 15 when this government took over. So basically, if we're having it at 13, it's a positive move. It's something that will comment. I can't say, I mean, it's not something positive for the economy, but there's also something to lose, and that is what we have lost. Mr. Atuforsen should review the expenditure consolidation. If he doesn't do that, I am very certain in my mind that the normal factors will end around 15 as after predicted, but will end around 17 in 2026 if we don't do anything about expenditure now, and we are front-loading everything to 2026.
Very well. That's the Honorable Dr. Tia Abdul Kabiru. One message here from NS Broby from DC says, good morning, Salom. Please, whose idea is the storage of gold to shore up the Cedi? When did it start? We'll take a short break. When we return... Okay, so that's the answer you have there. We'll take a short break. When we return, we'll look at the energy sector struggles, and we'll see what can happen. This is the big issue. Don't go away. You're welcome back. This is the big issue, 97.3 Cedi FM. Just gone by as a discussion on the Cedi, whether the rise of the Cedi is sustainable, what we can do, etc. And my panelists proffered a number of views. They generally expect that it will taper and it will get to a certain level, to find its smoothness level over time. But the consensus is that the appreciation is too steep, and that may not be very good. Well, maybe you are not happy, but that's what the economists and the experts are saying. The ordinary person will wish that it will go, as low as 10, so that, it will become 1:10. It used to be 1:1 when we started, or 1:0.8 or so. And then gradually we are at 1:12. So the next matter has to do with the energy sector crisis or struggles. The minister, John Jinapor, has been raising some issues. A lot of debt in the sector, 80 billion, monthly deficit of 2 billion. Now we need some 1 billion to purchase fuel and all of that, so our lives can remain on. I mean, a lot of debt in the sector, riddled with a lot of debts. But let me give you some updates. The Ministry of Energy and Green Transition has sounded an alarm over a looming fuel crisis, disclosing that it urgently needs 1.1 billion Ghana cedis to procure liquid fuel for power generation. The ministry states that existing fuel reserves are expected to be depleted in just a few days, putting the country at risk of widespread power outages. ChannelOne News' Ni Ayuko Okain has details in the following report.
The Minister for Energy and Green Transition, John Jinapor, has raised serious concerns about the worsening financial situation in the power sector, warning that the government's ability to maintain stable electricity supply is under threat. Speaking during an engagement between the Parliamentary Committee on Energy and key agencies within the power sector, John Jinapor revealed that the Electricity Company of Ghana, ECG, is grappling with a significant monthly revenue shortfall of 2 billion Ghana cedis, which has severely hampered the government's capacity to raise 1 billion Ghana cedis needed for fuel purchases to support power generation. The minister disclosed that Ghana's current fuel stock could only sustain power generation for 2 days and 6 hours, heightening fears of potential power outages.
Car Power has just sent us a letter that by 18th, they will shut down the plant because we owe them more than $400 million. IPPs alone, we owe them $1.7 billion. And so it's serious. I must be frank with you, Chairman. Today, as I sit here, this morning, my headache is how to get the next parcel of liquid fuel. The fuel we have to take us 2.6 days. We've placed order for fuel, but it has to be paid.
In a bid to shore up ECG's revenue, The minister directed the company to retrieve 1 billion Ghana cedis owed by Ghana Water Limited, which has failed.
Ghana Water hasn't paid even 1 cedi for 7 months. We need that money to stabilize the power. If you don't pay 1 cedi for 7 months and it compounds to 1 billion, the power sector will not be stable. ECG must collect the monies. All MMDAs are supposed to pay for their electricity bills. They have to budget for it. So if you take the health sector, it's the theaters, the laboratories, the wards that will be exempted. If you take the educational institutions, dormitories are not part. Restaurants are not part. Only lecture theaters. And so with class.
All right, so that was the Energy and Green Transitions Minister concluding that report by Nia Ikwe Okine. So the sector has reduced a lot of debt. People are not paying for the power they are consuming. He cites Ghana Water Company. And a number of institutions have been in the same difficulty or the same situation. Indeed, sometime last year or two, former MD of ECG, Samuel Dubik Mahama, took on a task of going around to collect money, to collect debt owed by especially public institutions. And Parliament was one of those institutions whose lights were turned off. They paid eventually. Hospitals, even schools, and many other public institutions owe. And so that is compounded the problem. Now, he says we need some 1.1 billion cedis to procure liquid fuel for power generation, saying that the existing fuel reserves will last only a few days. That is a real difficulty. If we deplete the fuel stock we have, then that's doomsday staring us in the face. And that's such a big matter. Honorable Yusuf Hussein started off his executive career as a deputy energy minister, and it's good we have him here. He understands the sector. And of course, Kabiru, doctor, is finance. So finance and economy and energy are friends. Professor Sumin is also there. That is also the case. Adumaku, Kusi Adumaku, is also an economist, and so we will have a good discussion. Gentlemen, once again, you're welcome. But let me start with you, Honorable Yusuf Hussein. What is the problem really? Why are we here? We keep hearing about energy sector debt, and we've heard about this a very long time ago. I mean, energy sector recovery levy, ESLA. We've heard a lot of things, but the problem doesn't appear to be going away. It rather appears to be compounding. What is the situation? What is the problem?
So, yes, it's true that the energy sector has been riddled with problems, and problems are not did not come yesterday, and not only associated with the MPP government. I mean, when you recall when the government of Jerry John Rawlings lost the elections, President Kufuor, when he took over energy, and the energy problem played a very significant part in his reforms. And that was when we saw the introduction of the
Toll recovery levy.
Toll recovery levy. And because he felt that all of us as Ghanaians must contribute to liquidating the debt that had accumulated. Now, you also recall that when Atamils won, he had to float energy sector bonds to be able to pay some of the debt that had accrued. And then when Nana Adonanko Akufo-Addo won, his advisors told him that the problem of the power sector was not the lack of investment in infrastructure, but it was just a financial problem. So if they could get money enough to pay off IPPs and pay off the debt in the power sector, they will be able to. So that's why that informed their renegotiation of the power plants that had been contracted, or the companies that have been contracted to establish the power plants. But what are the problems of the energy sector? I mean, the energy sector is riddled with a lot of problems, and particularly in the distribution sector. I mean, consequent on the power sector reforms, we separated generation from transmission, and transmission from distribution. So that's the energy sector reform. before the energy sector reform, only one entity was responsible for generating. So you found ECG setting up big, giant power plants in various regions to generate power, transmit that power, and also distribute. Now, so the power problem actually is not with transmission. We have got a transmission infrastructure, and every time they are putting in place new cables to be able to transmit the power to the consumers or to the distributors. So largely, it is not the distribution sector. It's not GRICO. That's why you don't hear GRICO in the news, because they're a tolling institution. When the energy sector, the generators, those who generate the power, they just toll and make sure that the network, the system network, does not collapse. So they send the power to places that are required. So generation, when we were faced with a generation problem, we realized that VRA could not totally generate the amount of power that was required. That was when we decided to partner with the private sector. And partnering with the private sector was done under His Excellency J.J. Rawlings. The first IPP was done under Rawlings through a Chicago-based company. Set up plants in the central, in the western region. Now IPP are invoked. So there is no difficulty with attracting IPPs or independent power producers into the generation sector. The problem actually is how to pay them. They generate the power, they expect payment. And so now we have to supply them fuel to be able to generate. Okay, because we're not paying them. So when we supply them the fuel, we net off what we're supposed to pay them from the fuel supplied. And because we're not paying them, they can't buy their fuel. So that is the problem with the IPP sector. It's not that they are producing more than we want. It's just that we are not paying them to be able to buy fuel to produce. And also, because there are shareholders who are owning the companies, and every year they expect dividends. Yes. And so, the dividends are always on paper. So debts. In the distribution sector, and particularly I won't go to NETCO, a Northern Electricity Company, because their network is small. They are not industrialized. There are no industries in the north. So they are always operating at a subsidy. And that is why they were attached to the VRA for a long time, because they don't have industries. And the strategy of energy is that we, the residential consumers, have to subsidize industry. But somehow we've not gotten it right in Ghana yet. If you go to the advanced countries, those who use energy watching TV and watching matches, and they pay more. You need the energy to produce.
Yes.
Okay, and if you want the energy to power your air conditioners and whatnot, you pay more. But we have not gotten the system right yet. But what is actually killing government is the transmission and commercial losses.
Transmission and commercial losses.
Today, as we speak, transmission and commercial losses hover around 23%, far above industry standards. So it means that any power that is supplied to the ECG, they lose, they don't even break even. They lose 23%. So they are going to be in perpetual debt. Okay? So how do we address that? Because how? If you supply 1 kilowatt power to ECG for distribution to consumers, what they expect, ECG expects, is 77%.
Because of the losses.
Because of the losses, 77%. So they are already running at a loss. And that was why we went to the Millennium
Development Authority. Or Millennium Challenge Account.
To help us to address the power sector bottlenecks. And they identified that what was actually accounting for the bottlenecks was expertise, technical expertise, and resources. And the technical expertise, they broke it down to technology and men or human resource to be able to implement that technology to collect revenue. Because ECG is not collecting the revenue. And they're not collecting the revenue because they don't just know how to do it. They don't know how to do it. How do you run a company and you are 68 billion, you are indebted to the government at 68 billion. Because I say it to the government because government is the shareholder. 100% shareholding in ECG. And so ECG has a debt of 68 billion. If it were a company, it would have been liquidated long ago. So that debt is sitting on government. And government is feeling reluctant because it seems that part of that debt has come about as a result of recklessness, lack of managerial and technical competence. Why should that happen? We just heard of the containers at the port.
Yes, but that matter is been swept under the carpet now. What's
I don't know. I'm just referring to you. I don't know why it is swept under the carpet. I don't know why we're not talking about it. I don't know whether the investigative authorities are investigating it. But the fact is that it's a problem. It's huge amount of money that went into that, probably contributing to the 68 billion Ghana cedi debt. Now, if you have a 68 billion, how do you get investment? If Dr. Kabiru has ideas of how to set up IT systems at ECG to ensure that we collect all the money, how do you ensure that we get those who have that ideas to come and partner ECG to collect the money? Because without good collection, ECG is not going to make it. Now, what the minister complained of, he mentioned cow power. Cow power is not in distribution. Cow power is in generation. So if he says the $400 million owed to cow power, he's already discounted even ECG's debt. He said that, well, even if we have that energy, it will go to ECG and they will distribute. But let's find the 400 million to pay. So why is it that, like the water we drink, the water is supplied. We drink the water. But we're not able to account for the water. The power, and when I was at the ministry, I said, look, probably we need to, and I hear they are doing it now, we need to meter the transformers and the substations. Because when they generate the power, they transmit the power straight to an Achimota substation. So we know how much power is going to Achimota. The Achimota substation receives the power and distributes it to various areas for consumption. And there are small transformers hung on poles, for particular households. And we know how much power goes there to those transformers. How come that when we go to collect the money, we are unable to reconcile the power that goes to those houses and the money that is collected? How come? You see, and so I believe that, and that is where the discussion with the Millennium Challenge account came in. And then they said, look, if it was because of technical and managerial resources and monetary, money, well, let's look for an investor who could come with a 55% controlling interest in ECG to invest his resources, collect the revenue, and then we can do a sharing. If we do a sharing and we are generating profit, it's definitely better than generating losses and then saying that ECG, we shouldn't have a private participation. Debt is our collective debt. But even if we are running ECG at break even and we're not reckon up debts, it means that the balance sheet of Ghana will be good. Today, anybody coming to take ECG or to partner government to manage ECG is going to ask government to write out the 68 billion, because no one will want to take ECG with a debt. You understand? So, but if ECG is running without a debt, it becomes a going concern. So it is the collection, technical and commercial losses are just way too high. There is no way any investor can come into ECG with that level of technical and commercial losses. It doesn't make commercial sense. Two, the debt situation is so bad that government has to come with a way, even if it means ring-fencing that debt and paying it after time, and holding people accountable. I mean, we must do an audit to see what is the true value of the items that were imported into this country. What is the true state of the debt? What is the debt that was not occasioned by recklessness and negligence, or what's debt or even fraud? So that we reference that and see whether or not we can retire that debt over time. It is when we retire that debt, because when power is supplied to ECG, they also have to pay. That's why we did the cash waterfall thing. Yeah. They have to pay the generators. And if you're already in $68 billion debt, city debt, how do you pay your suppliers? You see how the throwback, because they owe, so it means that they're not generating enough to even pay their suppliers, and these are the problems. They're not problems that you need to look into the crystal ball and see.
Right,
they're just there.
The problems, but it does appear solving them become very difficult. Is it a will to solve them?
There's will to solve them. Let's I say, look at VRA, an institution that is managed with excellence. When I was at the ministry, Sierra Leone came to us and said they wanted the VRA to lead the construction of their power dams. Because they had identified ECG hydro dams. They had identified the ECG as a center of excellence, of engineering excellence.
That's
in our West Africa. Yes, VRA, in our West Africa region. And so they wanted them to lead. And so we entered into an agreement. And so you see that VRA itself started running into problems when political influence and interference started manifesting. It's the same thing with VRA, ECG. The same thing. It's a Greco, there's a level of interference, but because Greco is a tolling institution, whatever interference cannot have that adverse impact on Greco, because they're not creating anything. They're just moving, and when they move, you pay. Okay? Now, but when you constitute a technical committee, a board of governance, in accordance with Article 195 of the Constitution, and then the board of governance cannot direct the general policy, and it is all abiding there is government institution. China developed. All those institutions that we are now going to look for partnership from are government institutions. Until we begin holding those who are put in charge of those institutions accountable, we're not going to make a headway.
Very well.
And that's the thing.
Doc, the energy minister paints a very grim picture. The sector has a lot of debt, and the Honorable Minister Hussein has alluded to that. How did we get here?
Well, I intend to be brief because there's one more topic on the table, and I hope we get time to talk.
That's why he's interested.
But you see, my brother is. I just want to tell the energy minister to be a hope monger, not a scaremonger. He's more of a scaremonger now than a hope monger.
The situation is staring him in the face.
Yes, he has the responsibility of fixing it and letting the good people of Ghana have hope that it's going to be fixed, but not to be scaremongering. Basically, so far, he's scaremongering since he assumed office. It's one alarm or other. And I understand why he's doing that. He's doing that because that gives him the leeway to award contracts without passing through procurement. My intelligence oversight suggests that over $200 million dollar worth of sole sourcing has been done without passing through the right process by way of sole sourcing.
And but sole sourcing is a right process.
Of course, but they promise the good people that all contracts going to no sole sourcing shall be done.
But sole sourcing is there.
I'm saying that they promise the good people of Ghana that they will not be sole sourcing. So if sole sourcing is within the laws, but because it has tendency of producing and procreating corruption, you would want to avoid it. But that is on a different note. I'll come to that. We'll come to handle that.
But this report was before you people, before Parliament.
I'll come to handle that. So he should stop the scaremongering and be more the hope mongering is better
But he
than.
needs to tell the people what
He can tell the group of Ghana. It is for him, just like he told the previous government as a ranking for the energy to fix it. For the matter of fact, there was that debt. The government was paying and keeping the light on. The government didn't come to scaremonger or in scaremongering. Right? So first and foremost, the Minister for Energy and Green Transition should transition from scaremongering to hope mongering. That's the first thing. The second thing that we need to understand is that the factor of Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia said it, and we all now begin to accept that his position was right, and even now, that the energy sector problem is not a technical, is more a financial problem than technical problem, like my senior brother also alluded. How are we able to finance there? And one of the excuses they give recently, he called the people of Tamale, power thieves. And he had to come back. He had to come back and apologize that this is not what he meant, that they were using electricity without paying. He didn't mean thief. But that is a sweet way of saying they are thieves. Whose responsibility is it for you to collect it? And I think that I have solutions to that. I have solution to that. I recently, as part of the parliamentary tour to, working visit with the communication, I also serve in the information and communication committee.
You are on very good committee.
So,
on finance and
so we visited Hong Kong in this World Internet Conference.
Okay.
There are artificial intelligence solutions to addressing this. Sitting with the ECG, where you don't even need human intervention, human face, because the discretion is because you are using human beings more in the administration of this metering and collection. If someone is not paying, automatically the light is going to go off. If there is any temper of the meter, the person is going to be put off perpetually. With this kind of solutions, the ministry can, I don't even know why these people, we are now even about 50 or 100 years behind some of these solutions when other countries have. And now there's internal capacity. Young graduates, IT experts are able to design these things. So this talks about privatizing ECG and then dividing it into 5 components and give one to Abna, give another one to Akwessia, give another one to Inusa, and give the other one to Mahama. It's not the solution. The solution is in the ECG taking responsibility and adopting the state-of-the-art technology in addressing that. That requires or limiting the intervention or discretion of human beings. That's the first point. The second point is that once we know also part of the problem is because of transmission losses and due to obsolete equipment, due to, obsolete equipment, for instance, there's a way we can, if you like, the substations are purposes for the management of power, right? Yeah. That if you have a substation, it is to collect the power and distribute it. It becomes a collection point. How can we zone the country so that the generation points are closer to the points that they are being distributed? So that I don't have to transport power all the way from Akusimbo to Paga. Said that when we have the Palugo or whatever dam that is there, it supplies the northern zone or from Tamale to all the way to maybe Bolga to Paga. These are some of the investments, but that requires maybe long-term sustained investment in a way that puts our power distribution, because distribution losses alone is a great loss that you can't charge it on the consumer. So if I do not consume something, you cannot charge it on me. So now you are producing. And what you are producing is even more expensive than what is going to be on the market for sale. Then when you get to the market, you don't even sell as you should have sold. Then there is a two-pronged problem. So I think that from the distribution part, let's look at the technical equipment that are obsolete, metering that are obsolete, and look, there are still in places that in Accra, prepaid meters are still used for residential purposes. That should not be allowed. Just like my mobile phone.
Postpaid.
Postpaid, sorry. My mobile phone, I make calls and I pay. If I don't have money to buy credit, I don't make call.
You can't make calls.
I cannot make call. That should be the system. Of course, I admit that there are some vulnerable and lifelong consumers that the government will have to be sensitive in the spirit of social or welfare economy. We all agree. But we can zone distance. Lastly, The minister promised and made so much noise about this part of, the time of use billing or time of use tariff. That in the 9, these people are going to be enjoying this kind of tariff in the daytime so that they provide way for industries to be able to thrive. What is limiting, what is preventing the implementation of this particular policy? That the time of use tariff system or tariffing regime should be implemented so that it will free power for the purposes of industrial use. Yeah. Because that is where the problem is. And if we implement it, well, we will know where to divert the power. They will not even be doing so. That will help you to even manage your power rationing in a way that seamlessly people will not even experience doom so. And that is another issue. Lastly, the point about payment of IPPs. You see, the decision to, we all admit, I don't know whether for good reasons or for bad reasons, that our IPP contracts are so expensive. They are very expensive. And that was one of the reasons why the previous government decided to go into the energy sector recovery reform or energy sector reforms. As part of it, the IPP renegotiation. Some of them were concluded, some of them were not concluded. I think that sincerely, we should finalize that discussion so that we can have a firm hold on the exact cost or bill that will be presented to government in a more, the burden will have been reduced after this negotiation. It will free some resources for the government so that government can, use that for other purposes or even use that for the purposes of sustainable. But one even wonder why the price water mechanism is not working. One of the reasons is that the water is not falling.
But small falls.
No, okay. Small falls.
Let the people see.
Small falls. And they decide to prioritize the use of that money.
First, the rains have been poor. And the second reason is that once the rain falls, people direct the rain somewhere.
That's the problem.
Okay, and that is where the problem is. And I think that transparency as to revenue and as to distribution by the formula of that revenue should be enhanced. Yeah. So that
every month you are getting something small.
Everyone knows what they are getting, and no one would be asking for what is not due. So I think that has to be done, and I know why it's not done. The ECG wants freedom, the laxity, to use the revenue as a so wish and determine who should get a check or not to get.
Yeah.
And it is not for the ECG to determine that.
There's a mechanism.
There's a mechanism we so agree to. And I think that the minister should insist that the ECG brings, transparency. Not just the ECG, the Ghanaian people. Once we begin to know that, okay, we are not paying as much as we should pay, people will begin to sympathize that this problem is not from government. It's for our own self, because government is producing this much, supplying this much, but the consumer are paying this. If we all see that and they even institute quarterly reporting or even monthly reports of what is happening in the ECG by way of revenue shortfalls, people will sympathize with the ECG. People who think that government is spending money so they can also steal power, and as something they are also getting from it, they will probably begin to review their thinking or their thoughts on this particular issue. And I think that if the minister does that, it will help us. But all in all, for the ordinary person, for me, being the one to hold government responsible, my major concern is the power should be on. Whatever you are going to do to make the law on, you have to do, because there are consequences to that. And the Minister for Finance, which we discussed, should not also be holding their money. He should release the money to my brother Jinapor so that he will stop the scaremongering. He should. The money is being work done. Car Power has done work to the tune of $400 million. Pay them their money. Don't jeopardize industries and lives, because our life, hospitals depend on that. Don't jeopardize businesses and life because you want to keep exchange rate afloat. Don't do that. If you do that,
it's not that. It's not. Yes.
From the past.
No, I'm saying that it's dead. He has to pay. He has the responsibility of paying.
So even
why is the man not there? What's the person? What's the money? It's not paying.
It's not that straightforward, though. Kabiru, you know that it's not that straightforward. Government is not, by the arrangement put in place, entitled to take the debt of ECG. What government will pay is what we call the cross-subsidy thing.
Now, government has decided that there are lifeline consumers. How much does government owe ECG? So what Jinapo is asking, or what the minister is releasing, is the money that government is entitled to pay
them.
To pay them,
cross
subsidy, but not the debt of ECG.
Government, when we say government is 100% shareholder of
yes,
ECG.
But the responsibility of managing ECG lies on the management board of ECG.
But by extension, it comes, I mean, it comes
government.
back to government.
So that's why we must first of all understand. I don't dispute that. That if we are going to say that the government should pay, it means that all debts of the state.
So government must ensure
that these people manage
so that they don't come
back
to them.
That's it.
That's the thing.
But in the meantime, there's some debt as to whether the cross-subsidized amount, the difference between it is enough. And if we've not even discussed, you see, consumers are paying for the inefficiency of the system.
Yes.
And if you say the PRC pricing regime, it is partly as a result of the inefficiencies they are transferring to the
consumer. We need investment also. The obsolete equipment you talked about.
Yeah.
I mean, the distribution losses and all those technical losses, etc. A lot of them will be dealt with if we have state-of-the-art equipment. But
and we have good management.
That's huge.
Good management. You can't import this number of containers when you are already crashing.
If I bring my solution, I told I have. If I bring my solution, probably for political reasons, they'll say, "Oh, it's MPP person."
No,
it's not. They will not. But there are solutions.
Everybody's quiet on the container. But let me speak to.
No, the container is not. They are quiet because of the noise they made about these containers.
There was nothing in there.
They know where the container. The National Security Report asking them to be released was not on the National Security Report of the previous government. It was in this government. So they know where if they are going to investigate and bring to light, they will know where the containers have gone to.
We are taking some immediate this time. I mean, so let me speak to Adomako, Kusi Adomako. I'm sure he will have a few things to say on this in respect of the customers or the consumers, etc. Mr. Adomako, this matter has been with us for a very long time, and it does appear that we are not making any progress. What are your quick fixes, and how would that translate to the consumers having some respite?
Okay, thank you once again, Salom. I think the whole energy sector in our country is not properly being run well, and with most of the issues goes to ECG. ECG has become a behemoth organization with whole lots of inefficiencies. And whenever ECG is unable to collect its revenue that is due them, it piles up a lot of debt. PURC last year, when they were approving the previous quarter tariff, said that increase in tariff for ECG has not resulted in an increase in revenue. And so the inefficiencies in the sector is always add up to the cost of generation. In fact, we've seen how the theft that happened at ECG, whereby goods were imported, they were not cleared, and then finally those items were being sold as a scrap. So I think for us to be able to have a stable power, it goes beyond just an engineering issue. It also boils down towards the proper management of the energy sector. And we expect the energy minister to be very, very strong with the entity, with the organization called ECG. If we don't take care, they will be benefiting from quarterly price adjustments. And one day we'll realize that even the equipment that they are using to even provide the services are almost outdated. We've been told that most of the equipment are even not fit for purpose, and yet they've been getting a lot of revenue, and we don't know where they use their revenue for. So we want to have a broader discussion. But for the minister, I think the minister has been seen more like an alarmist. Just 2 days ago, the minister said that we have less than 2 days of fuel for the sector. And then 8 hours later, the PRO for the energy ministry comes to say that, government has secured about 500,000 liters of fuel to run the sector. I don't know what they are trying to tell us. We need to be very consistent. We need to sit down and solve the problem in a 360. If we don't do that and we focus on one sector, one side of the problem without considering the entirety of the problem, we will never resolve the crisis facing the energy sector. And I know for sure that, there has been some talks by the energy minister that ECG was to go to privatization. And in fact, even before the committee was set up, the committee was called ECG Privatization Committee. And I think that was wrong, because you are setting up a committee to research and come up with their recommendation, and you give them the name Privatization Committee. It means that you know what you want to do, but we are rather going to use the committee to come and give you to rubber stamp your idea. I think we must have a clear and focused mind, to objective in anything that we want to do, and also be open to ideas and new ideas. And the minister must also engage in a broader consultation. Sometimes, by the time you hear, we learn that the minister has met some energy sector CSOs, and few CSOs are even called into that meeting without inviting other CSOs who also bring different perspective to the discussion. I think that kind of the selection of fewer engagement is wrong. The minister needs to, be very comprehensive in his public sector engagement and stop sidelining of some group and working with some. I'm even told that there's even a downstream petroleum sector downstream committee, which the committee was not even announced in the public, but we are told that people have been selected to work on to come up with some.
So you're calling for greater transparency. If they are doing something, everybody must know, so that we know what to expect, and it should expand the scope of, for example, the CSOs he uses or he consults with. Is that the point?
Yes, and also beyond the CSOs, I think in this country, we are a country whereby we are not making use of the academia. Anything that government is doing, government will just, call few people. We need to get academia to come in. Sometimes you can even get people of different school of thought, those who are pro, those who are against, and let's kind of triangulate on the various points and say that we can make a proper decision. When you go to the US, any major thing, you will see that Congress will call various academic professors with different school of thought, and then they listen to opinion from both sides, and then they'll be able to make a very good decision. But in this country, hardly do we even hear that, professors from our universities, energy economists are being even called in this matter. And it's wrong that government pays our professors and we spend money on our universities, but yet we don't even want to involve them in the decision making. It's wrong, and I think that it has to start from now.
Very well.
Thank you.
Very well. Thanks so much. We've been joined by Ben Insia, who is an energy sector analyst. Ben, welcome to the program. Yes. Of course, just quick. What solutions should we have to the problems the energy minister keeps talking about? Debt. How do we start to pay? Increase tariffs? What do we do?
I think tariff increments will not be the best thing. Before we even prefer solutions, we must know the sources of this debt. And I also think that these issues of debt recurrence is not a new thing. They've been with us since 2019. So it disturbs me whenever I hear that we have these huge numbers of debt to pay, or we have this huge amount of debt to pay on daily basis. They are not new. I think if the minister looks at what we call the Ghana Energy Sector Recovery Program report, launched in 2019 with assistance from the World Bank, it stated all the sources of debt in the power sector. One is the contracts we signed. Some of the PPAs were not in favor of Ghana, and at that time, they were giving us more than $400 million debt annually. If you take some of the gas supply contracts, they were not in favor of Ghana, and they were also giving us more than even $600 million annually debt. If you come to the other sector, transmission losses were giving us $400 million. the other part of arrears, where government shares 80% of these arrears in the power sector. So the sources of debt are known, and each year we know how these debts come out. But as a country, we've not built a consensus in how to resolve these debt issues one for all. We thought that maybe using ESLA, we could have resolved this particular debt issue. But as we speak, ESLA cannot fund this debt. I've stated this somewhere and I'm repeating it here. ESLA cannot fund the debt because ESLA, on the levies, on the build-up, we have only energy debt recovery levy and what we call the energy sector recovery levy. The other two levies on electricity are public lighting levy and national electrification scheme levy. National electrification scheme levy is for power infrastructure and not to pay debt. Public lighting levy is for paying the usage of power by what we call the street lights. So they don't also pay that. There are only two levies on the petroleum build-up that pays or that pay the debt in the power sector. That is energy debt recovery levy and energy sector recovery levy. And even the energy debt recovery levy, it is only a part of it that pays power because part was meant for petroleum downstream. So today, energy debt recovery levy and energy sector recovery levy gives us only about 4.5 billion Ghana cedis, as against a shortfall of about 27 billion Ghana cedis, as quoted in the appendix of the budget. Or when you hear the ministers, they mention 30 billion Ghana cedis debt in the past. So we know the sources, but building a consensus and instituting a plan in resolving this particular challenge is the major problem of this industry. I think that from the previous government till date, we've not had a plan of how to resolve this particular challenge once and for all. I think that that discussion must come up so that if we think that we need to create certain stabilization fund to support procurement of emergency fuel, because all that supply contracts have been signed already. If we need that stabilization fund, either creating a fund in the budget and allocating resources from other sources of revenue into that particular fund, we need to consider that. If we are also thinking of getting private sector participation in paying some of these debt, we need to also consider that. If you also think that getting loans to offset these debt, we need to look at it and then get a new strategy of how to promote efficiency in the system. I think that I heard some of a panel mention that privatization may have a challenge. I do agree with the panel somewhat because in theory, private sector participation in the affairs of government business is very accurate because the theory tells us that when the private person can, because of profit maximization, the private entity will ensure cost effectiveness, cost efficiency, and will promote discipline in the management of these institutions. But in Ghana too, we've seen certain private sector participation with government, which has led to certain losses in some of the industry. So it also has to do with how we are modeling our human institution to be very disciplined and cost efficient in the management of public institutions as well as private institutions. So, and also the selection of the private participant in the whole process. The selection process is very, very key because if we still continue to rely on getting political cronies or political friends in choosing who partners ECG in the retail aspect of these operations, at the end of the day, PURC, which is the main regulator, which is the enforcer of regulation, which is the supervisor of the industry, may not be able to supervise this particular private participant because we observed what happened last year when ECG started maybe for a better word, telling lies to Ghanaians with respect to some of the outages we're observing last year when they mentioned that they were localized outages where ECG, PRC did a survey and realized that they were not localized outages, but rather a challenge they did not report to Ghanaians accurately. Also, when ECG, PRC advised ECG to keep some number of bank accounts, but ECG exceeded that number. I think that PRC could not penalize ECG because of the political interference in the management of these particular entities. So even if you are going to get a private sector participation, which in theory is very accurate, if we fail in the selection process, it brings us to zero, and we are not even going to benefit from this particular arrangement.
Great. Thanks so much, Benjamin Issa. We'll talk more. Thank you so much. Richmond Roxin, who speaks for the ministry, is called in to correct a few things in his words that can be
don't add. Yeah, we passed for them the energy sector. Levy amended, under which we have the consolidation of different funds for the purposes of paying for legacy debt and also for the service of what you call the subsidized, stabilization. What is this farm doing? Because we have approved and money is being taken.
But you forgot that you
but it was just done, right?
So it's down in the last budget.
Yeah,
so what's the fund doing and they are complaining? So it needs to respond to that as well.
Richmond, good morning. Welcome
Are the
to
funds
the
available at all in the fund?
They are taken.
Good morning, Salom.
Yes.
Good morning to your panelist as well.
Great. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to have you on. Yes, you have concerns with a few things that Kabiru said. Which ones especially will you want to respond to? So we take it from there.
We have limited time, so I'll try to be very snappy. The first point is that the Minister for Energy and Green Transition is not engaged in scaremongering. What happened was that on Thursday, the Parliamentary Select Committee invited the Ministry of Energy and its agencies. So the agencies appeared before the Parliamentary Committee and the Minister participated. What happened was the committee sought to find out from the Minister the state of Ghana's energy sector. So the Minister gave a briefing on the energy sector. He spoke about the petroleum sector. He discussed renewable energy as well. And then also spoke about the power sector. What he said during that meeting was that for the power sector, currently there are several debts. In fact, when you look at December 2024, we incurred a debt of $3.1 billion. And this excludes one, reserve margin, and number two, the fuel component, which we need to power these thermal plants. He also disclosed that at the time he was speaking, he was left with 2.6 days, and that his headache was how to find money, and that fuel had been procured. It's unfortunate that that point the minister made was not captured, but consistently the media reported a 2.6, but failed to report that the minister there and then also indicated that fuel had been procured and that we need to find sustainable ways of procuring fuel because we can't keep going back to the Ministry of Finance, and that there are structural reforms that we should look at. If it means that we should take a second look at the tariff structure, which is currently before cabinet, will do that. So it's not accurate if he keeps saying that the minister is engaged in scaremongering. There's absolutely nothing that the minister will get out.
Very well.
What the minister did was to be truthful to the Parliamentary Select Committee. And I'm not sure that if Kabiru was there, Honorable Kabiru was there, would have expected any information that was inaccurate. He would expect that the minister...
Very well. But we were given a 2.6 days fuel, how do we say it? Fuel, we're told that the fuel we had could only take us for 2.6 days. What is the status of that as we speak?
Like I mentioned, the minister mentioned that fuel had been procured. We're expecting 450,000 barrels of light crude oil, which should be able to power the thermal plants. And don't forget that we don't only use LCU or liquid fuel. We also have natural gas. So we have, as we speak, there's natural gas supply from our fields. And also we also have the LCU. So what the minister was trying to discuss was the bigger picture of looking at the reforms that are needed in the energy sector. Every month you have ECG having a deficit of a shortfall of about 2 billion Ghana cedis. If any business has a deficit of that nature and is also making losses cumulatively, which should be about 40%, there's no way you'll be able to survive. And these are the bigger pictures that you're looking at. For the private sector participation, which is also another way to resolve the challenges that currently we face, Cabinet has approved that. What we'll be looking at will be the billing and collection. That is the most significant part. It's not the entire sale of ECG, no. It's just a component of it to make sure that ECG is able to bill and ECG is able to collect. Beyond that, there's also been an intervention where Cabinet has approved that all MDAs, that's ministries, departments, and agencies, should pay for electricity consumed. Only exception is that we have some institutions we call critical institutions, which will be Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, Interior, Defense, and Office of the President.
So the main point is, yes, Richmond, the main point is, and in just one word, the people of Ghana want to be sure that there will be no doom. So that's the fear. Can you confirm to us on this platform now that there will be no doom in the foreseeable future?
Well,
Absolutely. With all the plans that have been put in place and all the plans that we expect to execute with the support of Cabinet and His Excellency, definitely the people of Ghana will continue to enjoy sustainable, cheap, effective energy at all material times.
Very well. Thanks so much. So thanks, guys. I mean, thanks so much for joining us for this discussion. A quick message here from Chris in Ashale, which said the reset agenda will take care of Dr. Kabiru's fears. Dr. Kabiru said quite a few things today. I said, Honorable Ramadan, the Adenta MP, was like, Dr. Kabiru has all these wonderful ideas, and the MPP couldn't take advantage of it, and he's now giving us to us for free. Anyway, we are listening government. All right, so that's Chris. I'm sure he's with Honorable Ramadan. All right, thanks so much for doing the listening and the viewing. Thanks to the Honorable Yunus Hussaini.
We are not having our discussion. Is it time?
Is that? It's 12.
We'll make it again. Dr. Tia Abdul, what's the order? Dr. Abdul Tia or Tia Abdul Kabiru? Abdul Kabiru Mahama.
The servant of the great. The servant of the great.
Or the servant of the great.
Abdul Kabir.
Okay, Member of Parliament for Wali Wali. And of course, we had earlier the Kusi Adumako of CATS International West Africa Regional Director, and also Professor Patrick Usumi, Economist University of Ghana, joined us as well. My name is Selom Adonu. Have a good afternoon.